Piscataway Township Planning Board is called to order on the Zoom platform. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting was provided in the following ways: posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building and made available through the township clerk, notice published in the Courier News, notice sent to the Star Ledger, notice made available through the township librarian. I'd also place on the record that we are having this meeting through an online platform in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. In keeping with those guidelines that have been discussed by the Department of Community Affairs, the Planning Board has tried its best to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act and the governor's guidelines in dealing with the current situation. The Zoom contact information for all of the meetings and in the notices has been sent out. I believe the board has done its best to comply with the DCA guidelines and the Open Public Meeting Act. And I think that is all. Correct? So roll call.
Thank you. Mayor Waller,
Present.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Here.
Ms. Corcoran,
Here.
Ms. Saunders. I see Carol.
Here.
Mr. Espinoza,
Here.
Mr. Foster,
Here.
and Madam Chair. Excuse me,
Here.
Brenda Smith.
Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe Ms. Smith has her.
Handy dandy flag up. I pledge
allegiance to the flag
Yeah.
of the United States of America
Two.
and to the republic
For
for which
which
it stands, one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for the big flag now for 2022, Ms. Smith.
Mhm.
I guess now I will take nominations for election for the chairperson for the planning board.
Acting Chair, I'd like, this is Mayor Wall, I'd like to nominate Brenda Smith as Chairperson of the Board.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Are there any other nominations for chairperson? Hearing none. All in favor of Ms.
I gotta do a roll call.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, Mr. Blow. Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
and Mr. Foster.
Yes.
And now Madam Chair will take over the meeting.
Turn over the gavel to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, here we go. Nominations are open for the election of a vice chairperson. Do we have any nominations?
Madam Chair, I would like to nominate Reverend Kenny as Vice Chairperson of the Planning Board.
Are there any seconds?
Carol Saunders, second.
Are there any other nominations to that position? I suggest that any motion to close the nominations? Do I have a motion to close the nominations?
I nominate to close.
So moved.
Okay, we take
Roll call.
roll call for the election of Reverend Kenny as vice chair. Roll call, please.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Nominations are open for the election of secretary to the board.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Carol Saunders as Board Secretary.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any other nominations for the board? Would someone like to close the nominations for secretary of the board?
So moved, Councilwoman Cahill.
Do I have a second?
Second. Mike.
Roll call for the nomination of Reverend Carol Saunders as secretary to the board.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Foster,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Do I have nominations are open for the appointment of a board secretary? I mean, a board attorney.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Tom Barlow as board attorney.
Carol Saunders, second.
Are there any other nominations? Is there to have the nominations closed?
So moved, Councilwoman Cahill.
Second,
Join Corcoran, second.
roll call for the election of Mr. Barlow as board attorney.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Nominations are open for the appointment of a planner.
Madam Chair, this is Dawn Corcoran. I'd like to appoint CME Associates as the board planner.
Is there a second for that motion?
Carol Saunders, second.
Are there any other, do I have a motion to close the nominations?
Carol Saunders, so moved. Oh, go ahead.
Is there a
Second.
second? Roll call for the nomination or election of CME as a planner for the township.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Nominations are open for the appointment of a recording secretary and clerk. I'd like to nominate Ms. Laura Buckley as the recording secretary and clerk to the Piscataway Planning Board.
Carol Saunders, second.
Do I have a motion to close these nominations?
Ellen Smith joined the meeting.
So
Join
moved.
Corcoran.
Roll call to.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Well,
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
yes. Committee appointments, Mayor.
Your call, Chair.
What?
Whoever could make the meetings.
Well, I'm usually the person who attends the site plan committee meetings. Is there a nomination for someone for the Board of Education? Is there a
Well, I was
suggestion?
told Reverend Kenny doesn't have anything to do, so I think we're going to nominate him.
Reverend Kenny, I would love to appoint you as our liaison to the Board of Education. Economic Development, who else is available? Ms. Saunders?
That would be Dawn Corcoran.
Oh, Ms. Cochran, okay.
I'm happy to do it.
Thank you, Dawn. And Environmental. That was kind of inactive, but I got a feeling it's going to be active.
Yeah, well, that would probably be in-house. It'd be probably also Dawn Corcoran on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi.
The reorganization meeting is closed. It's adjourned. Do I have a motion to adjourn the reorganization meeting?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The regular meeting of the Piscataway Township Planning Board will please come to order. The Piscataway Township Planning Board regular meeting will please come to order. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided in the following ways: notice published in the Courier News, notice posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, notice made available to the township clerk, and notice sent to the Courier News and the Star Ledger, and notice of Mr. Barlow, can we have the open public meetings notice read again, please?
Yes, this meeting is being held through the online meeting platform in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, in keeping with the guidelines that have been disseminated by the Department of Community Affairs. The Planning Board has done its best to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act and the governor's guidelines in dealing with the current pandemic. In addition, the applicants who will be heard this evening put forth in their notices. Members of the public who wish to be heard will be afforded the meeting, an opportunity to be heard as if they were in the actual physical space. And I believe the planning board has done its absolute best to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act and the DCA guidelines, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Waller,
Present.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Here.
Ms. Corcoran,
Here.
Ms. Saunders,
Here.
Reverend Kenny,
Here.
Mr. Espinoza,
Here.
Mr. Foster,
Here.
and Madam Chair.
Here. We have swearing in of the, no, we have to read Pledge of Allegiance again.
Allegiance, yes.
One moment, please. Okay. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the
To
flag
the flag
of the
of the
United
United
States of
States of
America and to the republic
Republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one nation,
nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there professionals to be sworn in this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, that we have the new planner, Mr. Reinerston.
You got it, almost, Reinertson.
I tried.
No, that's okay. My name is not Smith, so that's all respect to, all respect to the
All
chair.
right.
He'll be taking
Listen off.
Gottlieb's spot. Mr. Gottlieb, I understand, has gone into taking a new job with Township of Old Bridge, maybe, but
I miss him. He sat right next to me, and I still keep in contact with him. But it's a pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. Can I have your name?
Yes.
please?
Okay, my first name's Ronald. You can call me Ron. Last name's Reinertson. Reinertsen. I'm a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey since 2005. I'm licensed in good standing, or so I hope.
Well, we do
Okay.
too. I'll have to
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
No, I just looked at my record the other day, and it's perfectly clean, so I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Reinerstein, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony about to give we the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mr. Barlow, are there any changes to tonight's published agenda?
yes, Madam Chair. Number 11 on the agenda, 21 PB 34/35V 140 Circle Drive North has been postponed until February 9th, 2022. The next meeting, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he noticed yet, did he?
No, he wanted to get a new list and renotice again, so he's gonna notice for the February meeting.
There will be a new notice. If anyone's on the Zoom meeting for 140 Circle Drive North, that's going to be heard at the February 9th meeting as of now, and notices will go out. That is the only change to the agenda that I'm aware of, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is adoption of resolution to memorialize action of December 8th, 2021.
Okay. Madam Chairman, Carol Saunders, I'd like to memorialize application 21 PB 29/30B Crescenzo and Carrie Castano minor subdivision. Huh?
DiCostanzo.
Oh, DeConstanzo minor subdivision and bulk variance.
Do I have a second?
Reverend Kenny, I'll second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza, and Madam Chair.
Yes. Item number 8, adoption of the
Okay.
minutes of the regular meeting of December 8th.
Madam Chairman, Carol Saunders, I'd like to adopt the minutes from the regular meeting of December 8th, 2021.
Do I have a second?
Kenny,
Join
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Number 9 is 21 PB 36/37 V as in Victor, Snack Innovations Incorporated, preliminary and final site plan.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. Happy New Year to all. My name is Kevin Morse. I am counsel for the applicant Snack Innovations Incorporated. The property is located at 41 Ethel Road West. The company or the applicant is in the business of manufacturing and distributing food snack products, which is a permitted use in the LI5 zone where this property is located. We are before you this evening seeking preliminary and final site plan approval with some bulk variance relief to construct some building additions to the existing facility to increase both the manufacturing and warehousing space of the existing business. Before we proceed, I would just ask Ms. Buckley, I had previously overnighted our affidavits of publication and mailing. I wanted to make sure that those were received and in order that the board has jurisdiction to proceed.
Yes, everything is received.
Thank you. All right, I have a number of witnesses, Madam Chairwoman. Alan Benz, who is a principal of the applicant or an owner. I have Josh Turner, who is our professional engineer, Roberto Martinez, who is our architect, John Ray, our traffic engineer, and John McDonough, who is our professional planner. I would first call Mr. Alan Benz and ask that he be sworn, please.
Mr.
Okay. Mr.
forward.
Benz?
Benz.
Benz, hi. Can you please raise your right hand?
Yes,
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Can you state and spell your name for the record, please?
Alan Benz, Allen, Benz, Benz.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Benz, you are one of the owners of the applicant Snack Innovations Incorporated, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're authorized to appear on the company's behalf regarding this application?
That's correct.
Oh, I understand the company is a family-operated business, is that right?
Yep, yes,
And you are in the business of manufacturing and distributing what you refer to as better-for-you gourmet snacks, is that correct?
that's correct.
I understand you've been doing so at the current location for about the past 5 years, is that right?
That's correct.
And you manufacture these snacks not only under your own label, but under labels for others as well, is that right?
Yeah, private label, co-pack manufacturing, contract manufacturing.
Right. Now, I understand the products, the snack products we're talking about are potato and vegetable chips, sticks, fries, also of a gourmet flavor, and also popcorn, things of that nature, correct?
Correct, yeah. A wide range of salty snacks, chips, sticks, strips, puffs, popcorn.
But all healthy.
Healthy, better for you, and gourmet.
Now, the current business operations, I'd just like to get that on the record. I understand that you operate 3 shifts per day on a 24-hour basis. Is that correct?
Correct.
And those are conducted 5 days a week, Sunday 3 p.m. to Friday 3 p.m. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And I understand on shift 1, you have a maximum of 50 employees, shift 2, a maximum of 40 employees, shift 3, a maximum of 30 employees.
Correct.
Now, you're seeking to increase the square footage of the existing facility to provide you with some additional manufacturing space, but more predominantly additional warehousing space. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I understand one of the challenges that you face with the business is that you don't have enough warehouse space presently to store the raw materials you need to manufacture the products, so that you have 2 middleman warehouses that you are trucking into because you can't store enough in the current facility. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so one thing that will be eliminated will be the deliveries on a daily basis from the 2 other middleman warehouse locations, because you can have the raw materials that you will need now all shipped directly to your facility, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right now, from the standpoint of additional employees, I understand that for each shift, you're anticipating perhaps 3, not more than 5, based upon the expansion. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and that's because number one, the manufacturing equipment is pretty automated. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And then the other thing is the warehouse space is just really much more storage space, correct?
That's exactly correct, yes.
Now, one of the things in connection with the proposal is a nice new paved parking area for your employees, correct?
Yes.
And we've taken a hard look at this. We are proposing 57 spaces in total. However, we don't really think we need that many spaces. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so the idea is we'll provide 57. You're requesting permission to bank 15 spaces, making sure there's area on site to build them out if they're necessary, correct?
Correct.
But by banking those and paving only 42 spaces, you believe that will be sufficient. And the idea is just to leave more green space if you don't need the additional spaces, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Right, I understand one of the reasons why the parking works at 42 spaces, from what you told me, you have a number of employees that carpool to work, is that right?
Correct.
And also some of your employees are actually provided by an employment service that actually drops them off by delivery vehicle or a bus.
Yep. Yes.
And then picks them up at the end of their shift, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So based upon your anticipated parking demand, it's your opinion that what you've provided in terms of parking, or we suggest to provide, will be adequate for your needs and your employees?
For the immediate future, yes. And if we expand beyond that, we have those banked spots we can open up.
Okay, and if the township, if you receive the benefit of approval, you would have no objection to a provision or a condition of approval that if the township ascertains or believes that there's too much stress on the parking and asks you to build those out, you would be required to do so. You would agree with that, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have no further questions of Mr. Benz. I wanted to get those particular items on the record. You're going to hear a lot of testimony from other professionals. I will keep Mr. Benz available throughout the hearing if they come up. If there are questions now, or I would move on to my next witness to provide you with additional details regarding this proposed development.
Okay, board members, you've heard the testimony of Mr. Benz. Do you have any questions for him at this time regarding his testimony? Hearing no response, I'd like to open it to the public to see if they have any questions of Mr. Benz. Ms. Buckley, would you check?
Big list. No one's raising their hand, Chairman.
Thank you. Close to the public. Okay, you may call your next witness.
All right, Mr. Benz, you can step down, but please remain available in case we need you before the hearing is concluded. I would next call Josh Tyner, who is our professional engineer. If he could be sworn, please.
Mr. Tyner, can you please raise your right hand?
Yep.
Okay. Do you swear that the testimony about to give we the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Joshua Tyner, that's spelled Joshua Tiner.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tyner. I understand that you are a licensed professional engineer in good standing in the state of New Jersey since 2003. Is that correct?
Yes.
You have not had the pleasure of testifying before this board previously. Is that right?
I don't believe so, no.
All right, so I would ask that you please give the board the benefit of your credentials and experience for their consideration.
Yep, I studied civil engineering Penn State University, graduated in 1995. Worked at several engineering firms and then sat for the P exam, passed that in 2002. Received my license in 2003, and I've been a practicing engineer ever since.
Right now, you have been accepted and testified before other municipal land use boards throughout the state of New Jersey prior to this evening. Is that correct?
Yes, dozens.
Okay, and you've always been accepted as an expert in your field, professional engineering?
Yes, I have.
Right, Madam Chairwoman, I would ask that you accept Mr. Tyner as our expert and professional engineer.
He's accepted. Thank you.
Mr. Morse, can I just ask, what firm is he with?
With Redcom Design and Construction LLC.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Tyner, you prepared the site plan that is before the board this evening, is that correct?
I was involved in that preparation. It was prepared by the owner of the company, Greg Reddington.
You're fully familiar with the plan, is that correct?
Absolutely.
And you worked on the plan substantially, correct?
Yes.
Right now, can you describe the site first as it presently exists very briefly for the board?
Right now, there's a 35,400 square foot building sitting on the property. Should I bring up the exhibits at this point, or are you?
That is up to you. Certainly, you can share a screen.
Yeah.
I would ask Mr. Barlow, we have some different exhibits from the various professionals. We'll just start them as A1 through what we get to. I'll have them identified if that's acceptable to you.
That's fine.
All right, so if you want to pop up your first exhibit, Mr. Tyner.
Yes. Is it visible yet?
Yep.
Okay, it's up now.
Right. All right, just please identify the exhibit before you begin your testimony so we can make a record of that.
Sorry, yes, this is an aerial exhibit.
It's gone away.
Yeah, all I see is a hand.
Okay, I'm not gonna be able to look at the camera, it looks like, as I would have preferred, but okay. Now, can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Change paused. Okay. Can you see it zooming?
Yes.
Okay, so this is, we call this an aerial exhibit. Basically, just to give orientation to where the site is. You have Stelton Road running north and south, and this is where it intersects with Ethel Road West. And if you then come to the west just a little bit, about 700 feet, you cross what is 41 Ethel Road West. And so this is the site as it presently looks. There's one access point, one driveway into the site. There are some loading docks here on the side of the building. There's a small parking area, then some loading docks a little further to the south, and some additional parking further to the south beyond that. The site has 190,000, it's actually about 192,000 square feet or 4.4 acres, but there's a dedication requested, so the dedication through the process will leave 4.36 acres of the property.
All right, can you describe for the board the proposed building additions, development and infrastructure improvements under this application?
Yes, so this second exhibit, we're calling an exhibit rendering. Number one, it's a colored rendering of the site plan that is in the site plan package that was submitted for the application. This is actually rotated 90 degrees.
We're still on the first exhibit, the aerial. Did you switch it?
Let me do that real quick. You able to see that now? Is that rendering visible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
There we
there's like a 10-second delay, so let's just go. I think we're
Sorry
good.
about that. Yep, okay, so This is basically a rotation, 90 degrees. North is now to the left of the site of the drawing. There's some glitching here. Ethel Road is running westbound to downward on the page. You know what? Still connected.
Yeah, we got the blue circle of death.
Apologize for this.
All right, so describe the additions to the existing building.
All right, are you able to see this now?
Yes.
Okay,
See it.
so, okay, good. So Ethel Road is running down, westbound down on the sheet, and they're, we're basically adding 51,000 and 190, 51,119 square feet of new addition to the building, giving us a total footprint in the post-construction condition of 86,419 square feet. So this portion here to the left of or to the top of the building, if it's left, if you're building from the street, is part of the addition. And then there's also an addition in the back, which is larger here. There's a notch in the building that you can see midway back, which is for the new loading docks. So there's substantially more adequate circulation for the truck circulation. Just so everyone's aware, typical distance from a face of a loading dock for the largest vehicles to the curb would be 130. We're providing 135 feet now. And each of these 4 spaces now have adequate circulation ability. So we're adding parking as well. So there's a reconfiguration of the parking over here, which basically gives you 8 spots there and some spots in the back, numbering approximately, I just want to pull up my notes here.
Oh, we're providing a total of 42 with the remaining 15 back.
Right, total 42 spaces, 15 are banked. The bank spaces are seen here in the front as green. There's 15 spaces right here. There's retaining walls proposed starting about this point of the site. Back to the rear part of the parking area in order to retain back a good portion of the site. Since the site actually slopes from the south to the north, there's a good bit of earthwork removal that'll occur. And the building itself actually its structural walls will function as retaining walls. So that's why you can see these interior stairs that allow them to come up off the warehouse floor and exit out through the building or enter. We're adding a new 1,000 square foot office space on the new addition to supplement the 2 office spaces that are existing, which will remain. The building breakdowns, currently there's approximately 24,380 square feet of warehouse and 9,600 square feet of manufacturing with 2,840 square feet of office totaling in the existing. So in the net end condition, square feet available for warehouse, 22,105 square feet of manufacturing, and 3,840 for the office space. So that's increasing their ability to have warehouse by about 40,000 square feet, and the manufacturing on site about 12,000 square feet. So it improves their abilities greatly to function as they desire. The site's been designed in accordance with NJC 7:8, which is the state drainage regulations, which were recently updated in March 2021. And so we have to make accommodations for groundwater recharge, water quality, and water quantity reductions. And everything about our design complies with that. We've also improved landscaping Have several comments from the professionals about modifications in landscaping, which we believe will be no problem to accommodate as compliance with the resolution. We've added lighting around the site so that there's adequate lighting for the parking areas and loading and circulation around the site. And that is the main gist of the improvements. We do have a right-of-way dedication that was alluded to earlier. That's shown here in a darker green shade. Proposed sidewalk along the curb, which we proposed at 4 feet. One of the professionals has asked it to be 5 feet, and we have no problem with making that change. Perhaps we go into the professional letters at this point.
Yes, just 2 questions. Number 1, from a drainage perspective, you'll be complying with the most recent regulations. Will this proposed development have any negative impact on adjacent or neighboring properties from a drainage perspective?
No, it will improve drainage on the adjacencies.
Is the lighting designed in such a way that the new and existing lighting will be done so as not to have any negative impacts on adjacent or neighboring properties as well?
Right, we don't believe there's any negative impacts to adjacent properties. It's good, safe, efficient lighting design.
Right, so there have been a number of memorandums issued by the various different professionals. First, let me direct your attention to the memorandum generated November 24th, 2021 by DNR Engineering, the board's engineer. You've had the opportunity to go through and review all of the items set forth in Mr. Carley's letter for that firm. Right, is there anything in here we need to discuss, or are you in a position to represent that the applicant should be able to comply or work with Mr. Carley to satisfy the contents of that memo?
Yes, I had a conversation with Mr. Carley prior, and I believe that everything's going to be fine for us to comply with. A couple of things worth noting, just on his comment number 7, he mentioned that it didn't appear to be encumbered by wetlands. We actually obtained an LOI from NJDEP that confirmed that there are no wetlands present on the site. And number 19, just for the record, and as we discussed it, he agreed that an aeration device wouldn't be appropriate in a small scale bioretention basin. So while we consider it, we're not going to be doing that. But other than that, there's nothing significant that we don't believe we can satisfy as a.
Had with them earlier today, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Very well. Okay, let me next then direct your attention to the memo issued by CME Associates. It's dated December 6, 2001. And I would ask you to look on page 8, item 10, which are the planning comments. Some of these items will be handled by our other professionals, namely item A, that will be our planner. Item B, if you could just touch on this, there was a question with regard to quote unquote environmental issues, which I don't believe there are, but you could just address it.
Yeah, we looked into that. So as everyone may or may not be aware, New Jersey has a site called GeoWeb, and it identifies a little blue triangle, which means there's a hit on this site. And you can do some research into what's called data miner, the NJDEP records. And basically, it appears that there was a site remediation that was required on this site for the prior occupant or owner of the site called Bentley Manufacturing. They had a response action outcome letter that was issued by a professional environmental specialist that NJDEP signed off on. That was signed off in 2017. And so that's one of the records that's becoming hit. The other 2 that are, well, there's 4, but one was the LOI that we applied for and obtained. And then the other 2 are one related to air quality, which was also a requirement for Bentley Manufacturing, and the right to know certification or submission that everyone needs to in the industrial under the ISRA regulations. And that's Industrial Site Remediation Act. All of the industrial sites have to submit this information every year, and so it's just a record of chemicals that they have on site. Nothing of concern. They will continue to comply with that submission process every year, annually, and so. Anyway, our opinion is there's no environmental concern related to that note in the GeoWeb.
Okay, very well. Thank you.
Commented on here.
All right, item C was handled by Mr. Benz. Item D, you can just resolve any quote-unquote discrepancies from the
Yeah, the
architectural engineering plans.
Discrepancy is the height of the building in the new addition. In fact, if we just direct our attention, you'll see this more clearly on the elevations and renderings that the architect review. But from this point back of the building, it's going to be higher. It's going to be 39 feet. That's what's proposed. From this point and this area here, it's all going to be at the existing height, which is approximately 32 feet. And so our plans just didn't call out the 39 feet. We were saying the entire thing was consistent with one height. But architecturally, we're going to go with the 39-foot height, which is still compliant with the height regulation of 40 feet in the zone.
All right, thank you. Refuse and recycling, I understand the applicant will have a trash enclosure, is that correct?
Yes, the trash enclosure is proposed right here at the center of the rear of the parking area, adjacent to the rear of the site. And there's a baler that bales cardboard that is in this location that will continue to stay in operation for recycling of cardboard.
Okay. Right-of-way dedication, I think you've touched on that already. The applicant is prepared to make one for the benefit of the township, is that correct?
Yes, they'll process that.
Now, adequacy of proposed parking and loading, that's items G and H in this memo. You'll hear from the other professionals, but from an engineering standpoint, I think you already said it, does this proposed development improve the circulation for both motor vehicles and the truck traffic with the additional loading bay and parking space configurations?
Yes, there's more new clean parking spaces available for all the people that enter the building. As well, this notch in the building for the truck traffic is going to significantly improve just how vehicles circulate on the site. At the current time, as might be alluded to by some of the professionals' reports and as others might mention, it's very difficult for the largest size vehicles to get into these 4 loading docks at this depth of asphalt available. Truck drivers that are skilled can make that happen. It just takes a while. They're doing multi-point K-turn type maneuvers in order to make it happen. And this will alleviate the need for that any longer in the future. So they'll be able to easily get in and out of the site from there.
Okay, now item I, one of the variances requested was not having electric charging stations. There's been a recommendation that that variance be eliminated. I understand the applicant is prepared to eliminate the variance, and you would, applicant would compare, I believe you used the term, make ready for electric charging stations, whatever that term needs.
Yeah, we can add the two electrical vehicle charging stations. Piscataway's ordinance is adopted in 2019. In fact, there's now a statewide electrical vehicle mandate law from the state that requires electrical vehicle on all new applications. And under that rule, make ready electrical vehicle stations need to be put in place, which really means is that the electrical power infrastructure is to be brought to this state, to the spaces, but not necessarily the charging equipment needing to be installed. That will be plug and play and can be installed in the future. So that was our intent was to comply with that.
Confirm, you'll comply and we can eliminate that variance request, correct?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to J and K, you'll supply those items, correct?
Yes.
Okay, parking, there's a comment about removing the banked parking, which I know will be addressed by the other professionals and will be addressed by our architect. You already alluded on item N, you'll work with Mr. Hinterstein, their landscape architect, with regard to plantings and buffering, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the applicant agrees to item O, the Ethel Road frontage sidewalk request with, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Right. P, whatever fees are applicable, the applicant will comply with. And again, Q has already been touched on, working with the landscape architect. So I don't think there's anything else for you with regard to the CME memo. The last memo we need to look at is dated November 24th, 2021. This is the in-house memo, as I referred to it, issued by the municipalities' divisions of engineering, planning, and development. You had the opportunity to go through this with the applicant as well, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so site impact, first page, items 1 through 8. Applicant can comply with those, correct?
Yes.
Okay, also on page 2, item 9. We'll add that and comply, correct?
Right, that's not a problem.
All right, item 10, existing sanitary sewer easement, which we believe is abandoned. You'll get further information for us in that regard, correct?
Yeah, we'll do some additional research. Where it stands now, this is no longer in use as of what the surveyor told me was since the 1980s on the actual plot plan from this whole subdivision. So it hasn't been in use since that time, but for whatever reason, the easement itself hasn't been vacated. If that's possible to do, we can do that. And we would agree to do that as far as I'm concerned.
Very well.
Yeah.
All right, 11 and 12, the applicant will comply with, correct?
Yes.
All right, 13 will be addressed by our planner. 14, you've already addressed, will supply the 2 charging stations. 15 will be addressed by our architect. Item 16 through 21, applicant can comply with those items, correct?
Yes, I would like to just mention with respect to 21, part of the pavement on this site is designed consistent with the new stormwater regulations, and so it's porous pavement. I don't think that the township engineer would have if they don't have a standard porous pavement, we would use the state standard for that. And I think that should be adequate, just to make note of it.
All right, 22, there's a question with regard to the large concrete patio area. We discussed that earlier today.
Yeah,
I understand that that's for the applicant's employees, correct?
Right, the applicant does want to make that space available for people for breaks. They currently can sit outside at picnic tables in some locations, so we would put some picnic tables, and we could make some modifications to put some screening up to just buffer that from the right of way or whatever.
Okay, and then item 23, the monument sign. You'll work with the landscape.
Yeah, we'll work
architect.
with them to come up with a location that they're comfortable with. I mean, we are requesting the variance for that, which is 10 feet instead of 50, but this keeps it assigned near the
Right, items 24 and 25, applicant will comply with those, the request for the fence and the dumpster enclosure details respectively, correct?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with all the rest of them on this page.
Right, specifically 26 through 34, these are various different planting tweaks and requests for adjustment. You'll work with Mr. Hinterstein to resolve.
Agreed.
Okay, all right, so I believe that handles that last memo. So, Madam Chairwoman, if there are any questions of Mr. Tyner at this point from the board, from the various professionals who issued the memos, we would invite those now.
You know, 2 things that I might want to just mention were the 2 variances, just where they're located. I kind of skipped over that, got a little discombobulated when the exhibit wasn't coming up. But the 40-foot side yard setback line is here, and there are 2 violations of that, but one that is the more excessive is the 25.1 foot setback here. So that's where that variance comes in. And then the other is the building coverage, which is permitted at 45% of the site. And in fact, our original design was 45% of the site, but with the dedication of 7 feet, it becomes 45.5.
All right, so really a de minimis overage, would that be your testimony?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you for that additional testimony. Again, if there are questions of Mr. Tyner, he will also remain available through the entire hearing in case an engineering question comes up later based upon your further review or the testimony of other professionals.
Board members, do you have questions of this witness? Mr. Tyner?
Madam Chair, this is Gabrielle. I did have just a couple of questions, and I'm going to start with the electric car stations. I do know, Mr. Tyner, you said that these would be quote unquote make ready. And with that, I mean, I kind of briefly looked over our ordinance. I don't know if there's any detail, and if Ms. Corcoran wanted to chime in. You know, when we close out after we do an approval, and we make sure that all of the requirements of the approval are met. My question is if they're only make-ready stations, how do we approve an application where the electric stations aren't actually put in place and only the apparatus to then, like, quote unquote, plug and play? I'm not sure if Dawn would answer that better. And I guess that question isn't really for Mr. Tyner, except to say that, you know, we may not want to land in that space. Maybe we will. And I'll ask my other question now, which is, and I apologize if you said it, did you agree to adjusting the street sign? And I apologize, Mr. Morse, if you had already answered that.
Yes, there was a question to move that monument sign and attractively landscape it. And Mr. Tyner had said he would work with Mr. Hinterstein to address that item to his satisfaction.
Okay, very good. So really my question then lends itself to those two electric vehicle charging stations where I know Mr. Morse knows this, that, you know, the township is, you know, very adamant about those, as well as right-of-ways and pieces of land dedication for sidewalks. So I guess the question is how do we resolve this make-ready versus what our ordinance states? And I'm not sure, Ms. Corcoran, if that's more a question for you, or if I'm just maybe, you know, Mr. Barlow, I'm not sure how we would handle that piece.
No, Gabrielle, this is Dawn Corcoran. I think that's an excellent point that you bring up. You know, what is the time frame? And again, right, you're absolutely right. Can we issue a CO for a property that doesn't even, you know, have the actual charging station in place? So I would defer to their engineer if he can give us some additional information on that timing and what exactly that entails.
Kevin, just I thought you were agreeing to put in the two stations based on the conversations at the technical review, and Mr. Tyner kind of said he was complying with the comment, but then started talking about make ready. So
yeah, I think it's just
put in two stations.
Yeah, it's a difference between, I think the state requires what they call make ready, run all the infrastructure. I understand that you require that the actual stations be installed. Is that correct?
Correct.
So certainly by installing the stations, we would comply with the state mandate. Yours is a little bit different from what the state requires, what we're used to. So Mr. Tyner, the applicant, consistent with this municipality's request, would be prepared to actually put the two charging stations in completely so that there's compliance.
We can certainly propose them that way, yes. I was only speaking really to the Mr. Hinterstein's memo saying to be provided in accordance with the recently passed state law. I sort of thought.
Right, and the recently passed law, so that's what's created a little confusion. Recently passed law says they have to be make ready, and what the testimony was consistent with Mr. Hinterstein's request as to the current law. So I think that's how we got into that confusion, and certainly that was accurate, but.
Actually, counsel, and this is my first meeting here, so I have to apologize. And, you know, I just went on the DCA website today, and the new state regulations supersede it states specifically, the new state regulations supersede the local ordinance.
And that's what Mr. Hinterstein requested. We comply with the new state regs, which is again, is the make ready, as we understand it.
But again, it gets into the percentage. You have to have 15% of the parking, and then I think half of that could be make ready. So if you're willing to comply with that, then that's what the current ordinance is. In essence, the township was cutting edge in having this a few years before everyone else, but now the new state regulations supersede all regulations. It states specifically on the DCA website.
If I may, Madam Chair. So Mr. Reinertsen, is that Reiner?
Yeah, you can call me Ron the planner, but Reinertson, you got it. You got it right.
Reinertson. Yeah, so just back up with that, what your statement was about the 15%. What was that again?
Well, that's what I was going to get to. I was just going to open up here because the state regulations, let's see, the model EV ordinance. I mean, I don't have to share the screen, but bear with me. Let me just get into it. Approvals and permits.
Yeah, I can tell you the applicant is prepared to comply with whatever that new state ordinance requires. That was
Okay, so here's what it says. Prepare as make-ready parking spaces, at least 15% of the required off-street parking spaces, and install ESVE in at least 1/3 of the 15% of make-ready. So in essence, you have 15% of the required off-street parking spaces, and 1/3 of those has to install the equipment now. That's
And
how I'm
only
reading.
2 are required, so it's probably just as simple to install 2 with
I
the
mean,
equipment.
Mr. Tyner, I don't want to, if the state supersedes, that's fine. The state sounds like, they're asking for ones to be ready plus make ready. So some available now, some ready to be available later. I mean, for 2 stations, it would just seem to me to be reasonable just to go ahead and do the whole thing now.
And Kevin, if I can just chime in, I mean, the applicant is seeking a variance for the amount of parking spaces to begin with.
Right, so we're prepared to.
57, so.
We're prepared to eliminate that charging station requirement variance, which was another variance.
Yeah.
And
I guess what I'm trying to say, let me come back as I was reading it, is 15% of what's required. And then 1/3 of that has to be ready, which is and it's actually more stringent if you read it. I mean,
Exactly.
correct me if I'm wrong,
right.
but it's actually more. It's 15% of what's required. So,
Yeah, so actually, which are we following then? Because if it would require more make ready for this applicant versus the 2, I mean, I'm not sure what the calculation, it's like 1 per 50 spaces, I guess. We're asking for 2 for 57 spaces. Maybe that is somewhere there, Mr. Ron, somewhere
Ron's easier.
Ron's following a little bit more of the state, but again, not to beat a dead horse, Mr. Morris, but if your applicant can put the stations in total, we'll just.
Yep, it sounds like a reasonable compromise. What you're suggesting is, given the fact that we're requesting a parking variance anyway, that you want the 2 stations in. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I'm understanding. And is that right? And Ms. Kale?
That would be my suggestion.
Okay, and it makes sense. And quite frankly, Mr. Tyner, I think that is in the spirit of compromise when we're requesting variances. Applicant will, they won't be make ready. There'll actually be 2 installed charging stations. Is that right?
Sounds good to me.
All right, so that's what we'll do. And that eliminates that 1 variance request as well.
Excellent.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Are there any
Hey,
other
what-
questions on the board of this witness? Now we'll open it to the public. Please, Mr. Buckley.
No one, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Close to the public. All right, you may proceed with the next witness.
All right, next I would call Mr. Roberto Martinez, who is our architect.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr. Martinez, can you please raise your right hand, please? Mr. Martinez?
Yes, sir.
Right. Oh, okay. Do you swear that the testimony about to give with the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Roberto Martinez. Last name is spelled as Martinez.
Thank you.
Right now, Mr. Martinez, I understand you've been practicing architecture for the past 20 years, always with a license, correct?
Yes, I have practiced architecture for the past 20 years and for around 8, 10 years or 12 years, something like that.
All right, you're licensed for the last 10 years in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, now you've not had the pleasure of appearing before this board previously.
No, I haven't.
All right, so if you could give the board the benefit of your credentials and experience for their consideration.
Sure. I went to school of architecture abroad in Latin America. I came back here to NJIT and finalized all my credentials. And I was granted my degree, and I've been practicing for, like I said, licensed for the past 12 years. I'm licensed in the state of Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey.
Now you've testified before land use, zoning, and planning boards in the state of New Jersey on prior occasions. Is that correct?
Many boards, yes.
Okay, you've always been accepted as an expert in your field, architecture. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, then I would ask, Madam Chairman, that you accept Mr. Martinez as our expert licensed architect.
Yes, he can testify as an expert.
All right, thank you. All right, now, Mr. Martinez, you prepared the architectural renderings that were submitted for this proposed development, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, I know you have some exhibits. Can you describe the building addition along with the facade treatments and colors for the edification of the board, please?
Sure. The building addition, it's roughly 42,000 square feet plus another 7,000. It's basically a warehouse and manufacturing that has been added to the rear portion of the existing building. This due to the, I guess you guys went through that already, the lack of warehousing space and manufacturing that our client had. Recast or tilt-up building. What I'm saying with that is going to be what you see now, the pre-manufactured buildings.
All right, did you have a share screen rendering you wanted to put up while you testified?
Let me share my screen.
Yes.
And share. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, we'll call that A3. What is that?
This is SK 8A, and this is the proposed first floor plan.
Okay.
This depicts the existing building in white, a portion of it, not the whole, a portion of the existing building, and depicts in gray the areas where we want to add. Like I said, this is the current, where the existing building ends, and we're planning to make an addition on this area to provide 4 loading docks, a small office area, and the rest, like I said before, is going to be allocated to some production and then most of it to warehousing.
Right, now you have an elevation rendering with some colors you'd like to share for the board, is that right?
Yes, I have the renderings. This is the proposed, if you look at the floor plan again, you see here the loading docks. That's what that's the angle that I'm taking.
All right, so we'll call this angle A4 then.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In response to the memo that we got from the township, we're actually mimicking the existing building. I don't know if any members of the board have been through the area, but the building is currently a 2-tone building. It has 2 grades, natural grays, one lighter, one darker, and it's expressed with stripe around 1/3 of the building, which is this where I have the cursor right now. This is where the existing ends, and this is exactly the same color paint, the color accents that they have, and then we're continuing that to make the building mix better with the existing because our building is higher. So therefore you will see that, you'll see that difference between the two.
Right, now you also have another color rendering of the existing building, I think from the street view. I'm
Of
not-
the proposed, actually. I have another angle. Let me go back to the first, so the other, it's from this angle. So let me show you the render. So
Right,
that's,
we'll make that A5, and that's what elevation?
that is the right elevation.
Now, just so it's clear, we had two comments relating to architectural. One was in the CME memo requesting that the color scheme materials of facade of the proposed building be discussed and that the building be, or those color schemes be done in a way so that there's a continuity between the addition and the existing building. Based upon what you described, you will maintain that color and appearance so there's building or visual continuity, is that correct?
Absolutely. That's the whole intention of this. We are continuing the existing building.
Okay, that includes, there was another comment in the Piscataway's internal memo or house memo, as it were, that an accent band be added for aesthetical purposes. And of course, we're prepared to continue that on the building addition as well, correct?
Yes, you can see it on all four sides of the building.
Very well. So to sum it up, I mean, the building addition facade treatments will be neutral and designed so that there's continuity and so that the addition looks like the existing building so that it flows. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So I'd have no further questions of Mr. Martinez. If there's any questions of an architectural nature from the board or its professionals, we would invite them now. He'll also remain until the conclusion of the hearing in case something comes up.
I'm satisfied. There's continuity here. It's the way you look at the visual, it comes around the building. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Want to just unshare your screen, Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, again, no further questions unless there are those of the board or the public. I would call my next witness.
Madam Chair. Oh, you're on mute.
That's right. Okay. Does the board have any questions? Any other questions of this witness? Hearing no response from the board members. Did we open it up to the public for this witness yet?
No, ma'am.
No, okay. Let Ms. Buckley, would you open it up to the public, please, to see if they have any questions of this witness?
No one raised their hand, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, you may proceed with another witness if you have one.
Mr. Martinez, you can stand down, but stay on board. Next, I would call John Ray, who is our traffic engineer.
Mr. Ray, can you please raise your right hand? I'm not seeing him yet.
I'm here. Yep, there you go.
Oh, okay. Do you swear that the testimony you will give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Right, Madam Chairwoman, Mr. Ray has had the pleasure of testifying before this board on many numerous prior occasions. His credentials as a licensed professional engineer in the state with specific expertise as to traffic engineering are well known. He's been accepted as an expert with regard to traffic engineering by the board in the past. I'd ask they accept him again as our traffic expert without having to go through his curriculum vitae.
Mr. Barlow, do you agree?
Absolutely. Mr. Ray has been before us on many occasions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This proposed development from a traffic engineering standpoint, correct?
I did, and I issued a report dated September 30th, 2021. Yes.
Yes, that was included with the application package. And in fact, your report was reviewed by the board's traffic expert Dolan and Dean, who also issued their own memo dated November 22nd, 21, which for all intents and purposes finds consistency with your findings, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so just for the board's edification, I'd specifically ask you to address the new loading scheme, the parking scheme, number of parking spaces, circulation from a traffic engineering standpoint.
Right. Well, one of the things I did when I prepared my report is I did go out to the site and I made a field visit to see what was happening out on the site. And as has been testified to by other witnesses, the current loading situation is pretty tight and the trucks have to make multiple maneuvers to get into the current loading spaces. That issue has been addressed by the new scheme, which has the 4 new loading spaces indexed into the building expansion to the rear of the existing building. That will provide for a lot more of a comfortable, ability for the truck drivers to turn into and out of the loading spaces, and it will not block circulation aisles or inside circulation. In the existing situation, I did note when I was out there were pretty close to 40 cars parked on the site. We don't have enough parking spaces for them. They were parked on grass areas to the rear of the building. We are resolving that situation by actually constructing and paving and lining 42 parking spaces with another 15 spaces that are banked in the front of the building. So on balance, looking at the plans as they have been prepared, I believe if they are approved, they will result in safer and more efficient on-site and off-site traffic flow. And it will overall be a very positive addition to the site by just cleaning up the circulation, providing for better loading area for the trucks, and in particular in a space where they won't interfere with on-site circulation and other employees, visitors moving into and out of parking spaces. So from a traffic standpoint, it's all positive.
Right, and from the adequacy standpoint of the proposed parking scheme, 57 spaces, 42 built, 15 banked, although we don't believe we need them in order to protect the site and allow the municipality to require those to pave them out if in fact there was a shortage. Is that from a traffic engineering standpoint for you?
Yeah, that's a reasonable way to approach the issue. If we do need the bank parking spaces, the township will, I'm sure, in the resolution, give themselves the ability to have those spaces be constructed. They're kind of in the front of the building. I guess we would all rather see that area be a grass green area rather than a paved area. But if we need them, we can build them. And I'm sure Mr. Tyner has included them in his drainage calculations, so they can be built at the discretion of the township.
Okay, and that's your opinion based upon the testimony you heard, your own expertise, as well as your traffic impact study and the review of the Dolan and Dean response as well, correct?
Yes, it's all positive from a traffic and parking standpoint.
All right, thank you. All right, I have no further questions of Mr. Ray at this time. If there are questions from the board, you will also remain available.
Mr. To the board members, does anyone have any questions of this witness?
Madam Chair, Reverend Kenny.
Reverend Kenny, go ahead.
Mr. Ray, in regards to your parking area for trucks, how many trucks are in and out of that facility a day? I know the area. I know where
Right.
the place your truck. How many trucks have holding area for those trucks, or are they scheduled times?
I asked that question of Mr. Benz. I did make a site visit to the existing facility, and I did notice there was one truck in the loading area, and there was another truck waiting to get in, but he couldn't get in until the first truck pulled out, and that's what we're attempting to resolve is this issue. Probably Mr. Benz would be better at answering this question, but it's my understanding, and Alan, you can correct me if I misunderstood you when we spoke, there might be 7 or 8 truck deliveries per day over the 3 shifts.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, based upon.
I'm sorry.
Are they scheduled times for
Yes.
for trucks for the bays?
Yeah, all deliveries are scheduled by appointment.
Okay, because that makes a difference. A lot of times you don't have a holding area for tractor trailers, 48, 53 footers, and you have an overflow in the areas where it's conducive. You're quite congested as it is. And I'm looking at in regards to that. Getting times to come in and get into a loading bay and within a couple hours or whatever, it takes to load the truck and get out of the area without being congested. That's a safety factor as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, you are correct. That is the current situation, and that's what this plan attempts to resolve. You are correct.
All right, so, and just to confirm, Mr. Benz, so Mr. Benz, obviously you have a new loading configuration with more loading bays and better circulation, correct?
In the proposed building, yes. Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
and just to confirm your testimony, these deliveries, you schedule them throughout the course of a day, they're scheduled appointments, and is that done to eliminate any truck traffic or waiting times? Is that correct?
That's for sure correct, and also from a labor point, we only have enough staff to handle 1 or 2 trucks at a time, so we make sure that we scatter them out in the schedule where we can handle them.
Okay, very well.
Council, this is Ron Reinertson here. I just can, and building on what Reverend Kenny said, I visited the site yesterday and I got stuck because a truck was backing in and out. I was behind the Postal Service truck and about midday. So it's a great question. Mr. Ray, are these 4 loading zones being abandoned that you currently have and just relocated? Because I saw on the plans it's 4 X's. Are they just going to be closed up?
I would probably leave that for Mr. Benz or Mr. Martinez. It appears as though they are.
No, that's actually not correct. They will, because we did discuss this yesterday, I'll just have Mr. Benz confirm. Those will also remain open. They'll probably get less use, but we don't intend on closing those down. Is that correct, Mr. Benz?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
But are they going to be secondary? I mean, I think that's important because of the circulation on the site, because it is going to get tighter because of the building.
Yeah, for sure. The 4 new ones are going to be the primary ones used most of the time, especially for the 53 footers, and the existing ones probably for the smaller trucks.
Yeah,
that would make sense to me. Yes.
Yeah, and Mr. Ray's an expert. Now, I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm a planner, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head, smaller trucks going into the existing attic as these big ones.
Yeah, and that's the intention.
You are correct.
It's a good question.
And one other item, Mr. Ray, I mean, we're asking for a parking variance, just in general for the record. Sometimes parking regulations don't reflect the uses. I mean, so really I just want to get it on the record about the reduction of the parking and the variance. This is more, is that more akin to what the current use is and the type of use is? And in other words, there's a concern about being overparked.
Right.
Though our regulations have a lot more, there's a balance to have pervious coverage and things. And that's why part of the testimony prior was having banked parking is good. So I just if you clarify that.
Yeah, and I've done numerous parking studies that have required variances here in Piscataway and in the general area in Edison, based on the breakdown of the manufacturing, warehouse, and office area. We technically need, if I'm reading this correctly, 95 parking spaces, but clearly based on the operation, we don't need that many, and there's no need to pave that many. I think the real question becomes the 15 bank parking spaces. Are we going to need them or not? And my expectation is we probably won't need them. I've spoken to Mr. Benz about the operation, and as he testified to earlier in the evening, he does have an employment service that buses, quite a few of the employees to the site, and I would expect that's going to continue. He can confirm that. And if it became any kind of an issue, he could probably, raise those numbers a little bit in order to lessen the demand on the parking spaces. But I'm very confident the 57 will be adequate. And I'm extremely confident they probably won't all be needed in terms of, just leaving that space green and not paving it. And And it is in the front of the building too, so it would be nice to have that area green as people traveled along the, the frontage on Ethel Road West to see a green area instead of the bank, instead of parking spaces. But we will construct them if they're necessary.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
For my questions, thank you.
Do you have any more witnesses?
Last witness is my professional
I'm
planner.
sorry, I think I have to open it to the public on Mr. Reyes. Ms. Buckley, is there anyone who have any questions for Mr. Reyes?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now you can go. You can call another
Right.
witness.
You stand down, Mr. Ray. My final witness is John McDonough, who is our professional planner.
Okay,
Hi there, everyone.
hello.
Right.
Hello.
If he could
Can
be
you
sworn, please.
Yes. Can you please raise your right hand? I'm not
It's
seeing them
raised.
now. Oh, do you swear that the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Sure. Hi there, everyone. My name's John McDonough. That's spelled MC, capital DONOUGH.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McDonough. Mr. McDonough, you're a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. Is that right?
That's right.
And you've had a license since when?
A long time ago, 30 years.
30 years.
Madam Chair, I think we're all familiar with Mr. McDonough, and his credentials are impeccable as a planner. So,
Right, then I would ask that you accept him as our expert professional
Okay.
planner without him going through his curriculum
Thank you.
vitae.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mr.
Proceed.
McDonough, you've been accepted. You reviewed this proposed development and analyzed it from a planning perspective, correct?
Yes, I have.
All right, I would ask that you detail your analysis for the board, any conclusions and opinions that you have reached and your basis for them.
Sure thing. I think this is a pretty straightforward application from a planning standpoint. It's one of those applications where the list of zone conformance is much longer than the list of zone relief that the applicant is seeking here. And I think as I'm before you now, based on all of the testimony on the record, there's a good predicate for the planning conclusion that the relief can be granted in accordance with the statutory criteria. And we'll walk the board through what that relief is and why we think the evidence supports the basis for the relief. Also, in support of the conclusions, I'd like to enter some exhibits. I'm not sure if these have already been handed up to the board or not, but they're
No,
just.
you'll be share screening for the first time. Just identify them so they can be marked. I think we're up to A6.
correct.
Good thing, Kevin. So A6 is going to be a series of 11 slides. You'll see it's a series of maps and photographs just to paint a picture of the site condition and then the surrounding land use context. We know that any variance application context is key, and we look at impact on the surrounding land uses and neighborhood. And I think this will help the board with orientation and certainly with respect to the condition. So first thing we see here is a simple tax parcel map. We're talking about a single lot, block 9201, lot number 46, with its frontage on Ethel Road West. You've heard about the size of this particular piece of property. It is substantially sized at 4.4 acres. And then flipping over, we now see on sheet number 2 of A6, an aerial photograph. As you saw through Josh's presentation, that we've got an existing building on the property, which is presently occupied by our operator, Snack Innovations, and the maker of these gourmet snack foods that you've heard about. We have an open portion in the back of the property, somewhat underutilized, particularly in comparison to the industrial use immediately adjacent, which basically runs front to back. We've got some open usable space in the back, which is exactly what the applicant is looking to take advantage of here. And importantly, consolidate operations. It's going to improve operational efficiencies, and the fact that we now have dispersed operations, including operations that are out of town. This is going to pull those jobs and pull those operations here into the town, which we think is a good thing from a planning standpoint not only for its efficiencies, but also for the economic development aspect of it.
Mr. McDonough, can I just jump in, Kevin, just so we don't get confused? Was that one we just saw A7 and this is A8, or?
I think that's the better way to do it, Mr. Barlow. I think
Okay.
Mr. McDonough was going to do them collectively, but I think that will be confusing. So
Okay.
that last one would be A7. We're going to, Mr. McDonough, I know you have them collective. We're going to, every one of these will have its own number, so there's no confusion on the record. So I believe.
And I'll take them a little more slowly. The first one, A6, is going to be a tax parcel map.
Yep, I got that one.
A7 is the aerial map.
Okay.
A8, which we're on now, we're calling a land use map, which is based on what planners recognize as the Mod 4 land use classification system. And what you see here is a color coding of surrounding land uses. Key point here, surrounding land uses are shown either as red, which is non-residential, or gray, which is industrial or non-residential. We're substantially surrounded by non-residential uses, but for in the back, where we do have residential development, you'll see, and you've seen through Josh's exhibits, that we do have a buffer in the back, which is 100% compliant with your ordinance requirements from a width standpoint and from a composition standpoint. So absolutely no relief being sought for what I'll call the edge, which is always a critical and sensitive area between non-residential and residential. So while the building is expanding, it is preserving the edge between those two land uses, non-residential and residential. Next, we're going to be on A9, which we're calling a zoning map. And this simply shows a reflection of the established land use pattern. Subject site in the middle, everything around us in gray is the LI1 zone district, where the proposed use has been both recognized as a valid permitted use and a lawfully existing use, and also continuing as a permitted use as well. So importantly here, we're dealing with an enhancement to a permitted use in the zone that has been here already. So not a change of use, no use immediately adjacent to your GB, general business district, and then of course, again, backing up to that residential district, which does have a buffer requirement adjacent to it and which the applicant is complying with. I'll go through the list of zone conformance, but you're going to see that there is substantial compliance here, not only with your use requirements, but also your bulk requirements as well that control the intensity of use on a piece of property. And you'll see the relief that the applicant is seeking here is really relatively modest. And so now the next couple of frames are going to take you up in the air. We're going to spin you around the property to give a little sense of the physical condition and characteristic. What's on the screen now is A10, and this is going to be an aerial drone view of the subject site looking to the east. This was taken just a couple of days ago, so these are fresh photos of what you would see on the property. Maybe not what Ron saw when he was out there yesterday, but certainly what was out there 2 days ago. And again, you get a sense of what's happening on the site now, those 4 loading bays, and importantly, the applicant is going to put this addition off the back with the notch for 4 brand new loading bays that are certainly going to take the load off of this center point right now. So while we're not foreclosing the right to use those bays, certainly the relief valve is there by directing the traffic to a much more, I'll say, accommodating area in the back of the site. So this is what you have there now. It's a building, the core is going to stay intact. The applicant is looking to put an addition off the back and then a small addition off the side as well, which again is going to be spot on with what is allowed from a zoning standpoint. And we'll get to that shortly. And also with respect to the bulk requirements and certainly improved parking and circulation, as you just heard through Mr. Ray. A11, we've just kind of moved the drone a little bit to the right, and we're moving in what would be a counterclockwise fashion here. Again, you see the building in the middle. You get a sense of the mass in the foreground of the building adjacent. So while we're coming back, we're not doing anything that is atypical of the neighborhood. You get a glimpse of the residential uses in the back. And as I said, this edge here, this landscape buffer is going to remain intact to protect those neighbors. I lost count. Is this A12 or A11?
A12.
A12. Okay. So A12, we're now at the looking west. This is the opposite view of what we just showed you. with Ethel Road on the right there, looking back at the building. This is the portion of the building that's going to come a little closer to the property line. And because of some pinch points that you saw in Josh's exhibits, not the full extent of the yard, but just little encroachments, the applicant is looking for relief there. It's going to be mitigated by landscaping, but it is essentially non-residential against non-residential. This is not an encroachment that's going up against the residential use, which would be to the left from this particular vantage point. A13, we've now spun around and we're looking at a view to the north. So we've got Ethel Road in the foreground here. Basically what you see in the front is what you'll get. The improvements are for the most part concentrated on the side with parking modifications and in the rear. And then on this side on the left here as well, where again, we do have that relatively modest setback relief. A14, did I skip one? A14? A14.
You're on 14.
A14, I just took the drone, pull it a little bit further back now to give you some context, is looking to the east. Again, our subject building, our adjacent building in the foreground there, getting more of a sense of the surrounding landscape.
Right, I wanted you to point out one thing before you continue your testimony. The roof, those are solar panels, correct?
Those are solar panels up there. Those are solar panels to remain. So we know that Piscataway places high emphasis on green initiative. This is already, I'll say, cooked into the building that's out there. And I think there were great comments about EV installation as well, which the applicant has accommodated. So this also goes towards the goals of green initiative. So
okay, just wanted you to point that out for exactly that reason. Please continue.
And look, I'm not pointing at any other buildings, but the building adjacent does not. This building does. So I think that's an added benefit of this particular building here. Again, looking from the top, I'm now A15, second to last slide, just looking down. What Kevin just referenced with the solar panels almost covering the entirety of the rooftop. You get a sense of the parking and the circulation and how this is really going to, I'll say, open up the back of the site for improved operational efficiencies and circulation. And then finally, we'll close with A16, which is a reverse view, again, from the back looking forward, essentially what the residents will see, preserving that edge, maintaining a similar edge to what we see on the adjacent property, and keeping the concentration of development compact and close to where the existing building is. With that, I guess I'll just hover on this view and walk the board through the basics of the relief that the applicant is asking the board to move on. Reminding the board, we're here in the LI1 light industrial zone. And the stated purpose of the district is to reflect existing industries. This is an existing industry, and promote non-hazardous operations. And this is a non-hazardous operation. Along with use, the project is substantially compliant with the bulk regulations in terms of the lot size, the building height, and the setbacks on the front and the rear. The side you're looking at as well, I'll say to the right from the road, is also conformance. And then importantly, of course, that buffer in the back adjacent to the residence is fully conforming as to width and composition. The relief sought here, relatively limited. We've got two bulk variances. You've heard about the side yard setback at its closest point, 25.1 feet versus the 40 feet, which again is not the entirety of the building, but just those triangular pinch points that Josh showed you. It's certainly going to be mitigated by landscaping and the fact that we're into a non-residential land use. And then finally, the lot coverage is really just an uptick over what's allowed, 45.5% versus 45%, which I think would fall within the realm of a de minimis deviation that facilitates the benefits of the project as a whole, and certainly can be mitigated by the drainage improvements that Josh is proposing here. All of that relates to the project benefits and is justified under what we call the C2 balancing test. And we look at the benefits of the application and whether they substantially outweigh any detriments associated with that relief. And I have a number of project positives here. First, the project is going to enhance an established business. It's a permitted use. It's a business that already has a commitment to the community. As I said, the improvements are going to consolidate the operations from other locations, including other towns, and bring them here. The improvements will result in improved operational efficiencies and improve the overall site flow and function. The project will make use of underutilized space and promote the planning goal for efficient land use. The project will promote economic development, stable rateable base, viability of our business uses and job generation. And all of this ties back to the statute and those fundamental purposes of zoning, especially purpose A, purpose G, purpose H, purpose I, and purpose M. Lastly, justifications for the parking relief. I really fall back on the predicate of Mr. Ray, that the parking supply will meet the actual demand. The applicant is asking the board to move on 57 spaces proposed. 217 would be required here, but we think that's really excessive and unnecessary if literally enforced or strictly enforced. You've also got good operational testimony and real world proof that the capacity is there to accommodate the demand with only 57 spaces, and actually the lesser demand with those 15. So justifiable under the flexible C test. And then finally, on the flexible C balancing, we're going to come back to that sign, which is not needing relief relative to its size. The size will comply. It is the location at a 10-foot offset, whereas 50 feet would be required. We think the basis is there in that this is not going to impede any safe lines of sight or create any obstruction. It will actually benefit clear and safe site identification. And just for comparison, you get a glimpse of the site next door, which also has a similar setback to the road. Bear in mind, it's not a setback to the road, it's a setback to the right-of-way, which is also offset about 10 feet or so from where that neighboring sign is proposed. So we think there's good continuity with the established pattern out there. And with that said, that's really all the relief that the applicant is asking the board to move on. Based on all the testimony, I think this is going to have a very positive investment or be a very positive investment in a permitted industrial use. We know that modernization has been found to advance the positive criteria by some court cases out there. Minimal relief, therefore minimal impacts. And with that, I'll finally get this thing off the screen and say that statutory criteria are met and approval is warranted.
Right, so just to, it's your position that there, any deviations would be substantially outweighed by benefits of this application, is that correct?
Correct, under the balancing, yes.
That the relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or the township's zone plan and zoning ordinance, is that accurate?
Yes, based on all the testimony on the record.
Very well. All right, so that's all that I have for Mr. McDonough. If there are questions from the board.
Okay, board members, are there any questions that you have for Mr. McDonough or any of the other individuals who have testified who are still available to be questioned? Hearing no questions from the board, Ms. Buckley, would you please check the public to see if they have any questions?
Yes, there's an Eric Y that has his hand raised.
Okay.
Yes, this is, hi. Hi,
Hi,
Harry.
Mr. Weiss. Could you give us your name and address, please?
It's my name is Eric Yang. I work across the street, 50 Ethel Road West. And my question to John or Alan is, with the new improvements, how much sorry about this, how would this alleviate the parking on the street?
Hi, Eric. Nice to meet you, neighbor.
Nice to meet you too, neighbor.
So I want to tell you that this is gonna relieve with the truck drivers, waiting to load and unload parked on the side of the street, 100%. We have these 4 new loading docks that the new building is gonna accommodate, and and they're much bigger and longer loading docks than what we have now. So we're actually doubling our capacity for taking those trucks in, and we increase the footprint so they can actually maneuver in and out much faster and utilize all 4 loading docks as opposed to the existing space that we have now. So this should eliminate that problem, and I apologize for it in the past. And
No worries, no
we
worries.
we always telling the truck drivers not to block and not to wait and to drive around and come back if they're not on schedule with their appointments. And we're going to continue to do that. And this will definitely resolve that issue for you.
Oh, okay, so so in the near future, we won't see any trucks parking on the streets, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
look, just so the record's clear, and I appreciate exactly what you're saying, Mr. Yang. As you heard, Mr. Benz, they are sensitive to all their neighbors. They attempt to schedule the trucks staggered. So I understand sometimes they loiter and wait outside. Mr. Benz has already testified he will continue to stagger the deliveries, as he already testified to even before you made your comment.
Okay.
The site will have better circulation. Certain things we can't control if they want to show up early, but we will continue.
I understand.
And he will continue to speak to them if they're showing up early when they're not supposed to be scheduled. I just wanted the record to be clear. So I don't know in the short term, but once it gets constructed out, I think there'll be a better ability to alleviate some of the concerns that you have.
Okay, all right, thank you. And congrats, Alan.
Thank you, thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, come over for
Thank
some
you.
snacks.
Any other questions from the public?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Mr. Morse, do you have anything you would like to say before I put the question to the board?
I'm not going to belabor. You've heard extensive testimony from a distinguished panel of experts. From my standpoint, it doesn't get better. I'm presenting a manufacturing client that makes potato chips and has a roof full of solar panels because they're green initiative folks. So it's a family-owned business. They've been in town for about 5 years. As you can see by the colloquy you just had, I think they're good neighbors in the business community, and the family is prepared to make a substantial investment by the size and the magnitude of this expanded operation in the Piscataway business community. And we respectfully request that you grant our application.
Members of the board, you heard the entirety of this application. Do we have any comments, or would somebody like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Kale, just one last comment, and Mr. Morse, I would just like to say, I'm not retracting what I'm saying, but with regard to the electric charging stations, that the applicant would be compliant with the state regs as is, and that the two electric charging stations built and not make ready, but completely built, do fulfill the state regs, if that's going to supersede the township. I just wanted to clarify that because I'm thinking about what Mr. Reinertson had said.
Look, there's some confusion there. I can tell you, they're going to build 2 charging stations. They won't be make ready. They will be built out. And that eliminates the variance according to your ordinance.
Okay. In light of that representation, would somebody like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, this is Dawn Corcoran. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the application subject to the DNR report, the CME report, and the staff report. Also subject to the construction of the electric vehicle charging stations, and also with the condition that in the event the land bank parking spaces need to be constructed, the applicant will be required to do so at the townships once we notify them.
Do I have a second? Roll call, please.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
And Madam Chair.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies and
Gentlemen.
gentlemen.
Thank you, Kevin.
Our team will be logging off. Everyone have a pleasant evening. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night,
Good
everyone.
night. Stay safe.
You
I'm
too.
gonna ask Kevin if he gets paid partially in chips.
Anybody who
Popcorn.
facilitates chips, it can't be any all bad and no bad, right? Item number 10, 21 PB 38/39V, Infinity Biologics. Mr. Michael Butler.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Butler, and I represent, I'm from the law firm Beckert Siemens, and I represent Infinity Biologics. Their application tonight is for preliminary and final site plan approval with bulk variance.
Correct.
And just for the record, we did send over, FedExed over our notice package. Just want to make sure that was received so that the board can take jurisdiction on the application.
Yes, it was received.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, my name is Michael Butler. Happy New Year to all of you who I haven't met before. I represent Infinity Biologics. They have an application tonight for preliminary and final site plan approval with the bulk variance. This is regarding property at 30 Knightsbridge Road. It's designated on the Township tax maps as block 6201, lot 4.02. The property is in the LI 5 zone and the BPI zone, but all of the work that's being proposed is actually in the LI 5 zone. Just in a nutshell, what my client is for approval to place a liquid nitrogen tank in the back of one of the buildings. My client is a tenant. Because of that, it needs that tank for its operations, which have to do, big part of its operations have to do with COVID testing and COVID sample analysis and storage. They are the placement of that tank does trigger a height variance because of it's an accessory structure, and it's over the accessory structure limitation that's placed in your ordinance. But it is underneath the height level of the building. I have two witnesses for you tonight. One witness is Mary Starella. She is the chief legal counsel for my client IBX. And she'll be talking about introducing to the board who IBX is. Infinity Biologics, I always call them IBX just for shorthand. It's easier to say. I also have William Doran, or Bill Doran. He is the architect for the project, and he's going to talk more specifically about the proposal. If no one has any questions of me, I'll bring my first witness up and we'll start our testimony.
Anyone have a question? What?
I think it may be just background talk.
If you have background talk, could you mute? Okay, you have a witness that you want to call?
Yes. Miss Starella, Mary Starella.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give with the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Mary Starella, MaryStorella.
Thank you very much.
You may proceed.
Oh, sorry. Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your question.
No, I said you may proceed.
Oh, thanks. Good evening, Mary. Can you just please introduce yourself to the board and your position at IBX?
Sure, I'm Mary Starella. I'm the Chief Legal and Compliance Officer for Infinity Biologics.
Okay, and how long have you been working for IBX?
About 1.5 years.
Okay. Could you just introduce the board to IBX? What is the company, and what are they doing on this property?
Sure. So IBX is a next generation central lab. We support academia, government, industry, We provide global sample collection, processing, storage, and analytical services integrated with scientific and technical support in both research and clinical. IBX is very happy to say that we received the first FDA emergency use authorization, enabling the use of saliva tests to detect the presence of COVID. We are in fact the lab that processes all the free at-home COVID tests, the PCR tests for New Jersey Department of Health's free testing program that was just announced maybe a month ago. In addition, IBX has an agreement with the CDC, and under that agreement, we actually sequence the virus to assist the CDC in public surveillance activities. IBX used to operate as RU-CDR and Infinite Biologics before it spun off from Rutgers University in August of 2020.
So IBX used to work and share space in Rutgers University, and presently IBX, you're moving out of that Rutgers space slowly and kind of condensing your operations into 30 Knightsbridge and some of the surrounding properties.
That's correct. So since we spun off from Rutgers, we've gradually moved operations, including our COVID testing business, from Rutgers to our 30 Knightsbridge location. And then this year, either third or fourth quarter, we'll move the rest of our operations out of Rutgers and into 30 Knightsbridge.
Great, perfect. And IBX, they are tenants at this property. They are not the owners of the property, correct?
That's right. We lease 2 floors of Building 3 at 30 Knightsbridge and Building 4 from Keystone Property Group. It's approximately 197 or so square feet in total, 99,000 of which is in Building 4 and 97,000 of which is in Building 3.
Okay. The owner of the property has consented to this application. They did sign the application. That's correct.
That's correct.
And the space that IBX is using in the property, what do you do in the property that you're renting?
So in the space that we rent, we do 3 main activities. We conduct our COVID testing business. And then, as I said before, we'll be moving the rest of all of our operations from Rutgers University over to the 30 Knightsbridge location later this year. We store biospecimens, including our COVID biospecimens, and then we also have some corporate offices.
Perfect. You have, I know you're slowly moving over to this location. There's enough parking for employees right now and into the future at this location, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just talk to the board about what IBX is asking for right now in regard to the tank?
So what IBX is asking for is to install an approximately 11,000 gallon liquid nitrogen tank. It would be adjacent to Building 4, the Building 4 entrance on the grass at the rear of the property. So the only IBX employees that would ever see the tank are the employees that need to enter Building 4 in connection with storage of biospecimens in the tanks, or sort of maintenance of our freezer tanks and freezers that would be located in Building 4. The liquid nitrogen that's stored in that 11,000 gallon tank would be used to feed our biospecimen storage tanks. And we will have approximately 100 of those tanks in that location. And we need the liquid nitrogen because we need to maintain ultra low temperatures in those freezer tanks. So we keep the tanks at a negative 196 degrees Celsius. And the only way to do that is with the liquid nitrogen. And we need to be able to store these biospecimens in this way. It's part of our core business. It's vital to us. And it's vital to our COVID testing and variant sequencing work.
Okay, perfect. So just to boil that down, what's used in Building 4 is, for lack of a better description, a lot of freezers that are holding these specimens, and they need to be held at a certain temperature, and that liquid nitrogen is used to keep the temperature in those freezers at the correct level.
That's correct.
Okay. How often, so this is an 11,000 gallon tank. How often does the tank have to be refilled?
So there's not a regular schedule for refilling the tank. It's done based on demand. Based on our experience, our best estimate is that we will need to fill it approximately twice a month. But we coordinate with our vendor Airgas so that the tank is filled at night in order to minimize disruption.
Perfect. Madam Chair, I don't have any further questions of Ms. Storella. I don't know if anyone from the board or from the public has any questions, but I welcome those questions.
Mr. Butler, I just want to make sure I didn't get my notes backwards, and maybe Ms. Storella can just correct. The building 3 is 90,000 square feet and building 4 is 97,000, or did I get that mixed up?
So building 4 is 97,000 and
Okay.
building 3 is 99,000.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the board?
Hi, this is Dennis. I do have one question. What are the fail safes for this type of tank to be in the building? What happens if something were to leak or anything like that? What's the process of rectifying it?
That's a good question. There are, I'm sure that there are safety provisions in place, and if there was to be a leak, the nitrogen, which is in the gas form, would evaporate into the air. There would be no leakage, because it doesn't at the temperature that at air temperature, it's gas. It's gonna, if there was to be a leak, it would go away into the air.
We have, IBX has a number, as you can imagine, a number of policies and procedures internally for how to maintain and take care of our freezers and tanks that we keep internally, including this additional tank. And it has provisions for emergency provisions in the event that something were to happen. I don't have them at the tip of my tongue. I wish I did, I could tell you them, but those policies and procedures are in place.
And Ms. Storella, would I be correct in assuming that this is a state licensed facility and the tank will have to be inspected by the state, as are the freezers, and I'm sure the laboratories just for certification, things of that nature?
That's exactly correct. We are a state certified laboratory. We're a CLIA accredited laboratory, a CAP accredited laboratory, and everything is subject to appropriate inspection based on those accreditations.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, one question.
Reverend Kenny, go ahead.
Is that tank going to be mounted on a cement square pad and anchored down?
Yes, we'll get into that testimony in a moment from Mr. Doran.
Oh, okay, he'll handle that. Okay, because there's some questions I need to ask in regards to safety features on that Air Products tanks. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board regarding this testimony from this witness? Okay, hearing no response, I'll open it for questions from the public.
No one, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Close to the public. You may call your next witness, Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My next witness is William Doran. He is an architect, a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. I think I see him. Yep, he's on.
I'm here.
Okay.
He'll be sworn in.
Okay, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
William Doran. Last name is Doran.
Thank you.
You may
Okay,
proceed.
All right, Mr. Doran, I don't believe you've ever been qualified as an expert by this board. So if you could provide your CV to the board and explain your licenses.
Sure. I'm graduated with an architectural degree from Catholic University in 1980, licensed by the state of New Jersey as an architect in 1987. Started my firm at that point, which is still running today. I have not been in front of this board, but I've been in front of boards all over the state and accepted as a expert witness.
Okay, I would offer the board, Mr. Doran, as a witness to accept his credentials.
Yes, he may testify as an expert before this board tonight.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to try our best here with me being Vanna White.
And Michael, you know what? I was going to try this.
Okay.
I don't know if everyone can. Sorry. Oh, yeah, this. And I was going to start with the location of the building from this map on Google Earth. Just as orientation, we have 287 running over here.
And part, excuse me, just for a moment, Bill, if I could, Mr. Barlow, we want to mark this as A1.
Yeah, Michael, do you have this on your computer also? Were you going to share this?
Yeah, would it be easier for me to share it?
I think so.
I think so, because if he's doing it off his phone, it's
too small.
Too small.
Yeah, it's not legible for all of us.
Just give me a moment.
Sure.
All right, can you see?
There we go.
Can you see
Yeah,
my
much
screen?
better.
Much better.
So this is a Google Earth view. We'll call this A1.
Okay. I'm sorry for interrupting. Okay.
No, I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. So that white basically square, yep, that white basic square there in the center of the complex is that's the building to the left of that. Actually is building 4, and where the I'm sorry, that's building 3, that white area there, and the building to the left of that is building 4, and then the tank is going right in the corner there between building 3 and 4.
So basically the tank is going where I have the cursor here.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's in terms of Night Bridge Road, that's in the back of the building. So as was testified earlier, the tank is going to sit on what is now a grassed area. We're going to install a concrete pad that is surrounded by a fence, a protective fence, and concrete bollards, so that any vehicles coming from the parking lot would be stopped before it got to the fence and then to the tank. The tank is going to be bolted down into the concrete as designed by the manufacturer.
And maybe it would be easy if I flip to, this is the site plan exhibit. Mr. Barlow, maybe we can mark this as A2.
Correct.
I think Mr. Duran, if you could walk the board through the site plan, which shows some of what you were just talking about.
Yes. Well, as you on the key plan there, you can see that the area that we've hatched out is right there is where the tank is going, sort of tucked into the corner there of building 4. And we have that entire parking lot before we get this whole site on 3 sides is surrounded by similar type use buildings. The 4th side, which is on the other side of this parking lot where your cursor is now, is a residential zone. The residences all have large trees that shield their view to the entire site, as well as the proposed tank. In fact, the property next door has a very similar tank that we're looking to put in. Theirs is in the back of the building. Michael, I think you have that picture. Can we bring that up?
Sure. Hold on one second. I think that's it, correct?
Yes. So this is the tank on the property right adjacent to ours. The tank is very similar in style. Their building is a little shorter than ours, so their tank is larger, is taller than the building. If we go back and I forget who asked the question before about how this is going to get installed. You can't see how it's bolted to the ground, but here you can see in a picture the fencing that will go around the tank, and then the concrete bollards there that are painted yellow. They'll be in front of the fence, again, to protect it from any vehicles.
And Mr. Barlow, just for identification, this would be Exhibit A3, a picture of a similar tank.
I understand it's similar in nature and design. Did Mr. Doran say this is the neighbor has this?
Yes.
Adjacent property.
Yes.
So this is also in Piscataway. Okay.
It's right next door.
Okay.
You can see the tank from that back parking lot there that we were talking about.
Okay.
So, Michael, if you wouldn't mind going back to the drawing there, and then over to the elevation on the left side of the drawing, the exterior elevation.
Let's see if I can blow it up. Is that good?
Yes. Yes. So that's an elevation looking at the tank and the building, and you can see that the tank, we've dimensioned it at 34 feet, and the existing building there is 40 feet high. So we're 6 feet under the height of the existing building.
Okay, so the height of the existing building is approximately 40 feet. The height of the tank will be 34 feet.
Correct.
That's obviously once it's mounted on the concrete pad.
Correct.
Okay. And you said before there will be bollards surrounding the tank and a fence.
Yes.
Okay. And that's a sliding fence?
Well, there's a gate.
I'm sorry, a gate.
If you go back to the upper right construction plan, we show the into that plan. You'll see that. Yep, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Either one. You'll see there that the tank, the grade there from the curb up to the building actually slopes about 2 feet or so. So we're going to have a block retaining wall around the tank on 3 sides, on the building sides, and then which also has a fence around it. And then on the parking lot side, there'll be a fence with a gate in it for servicing access and for filling access. And then the concrete bollards will go across that side of the enclosure and in between the curb and the fencing.
Okay. Perfect. And you were saying before that there's, if it's your opinion that there's not going to be any visual impacts from this tank because of the distance from the rear of this property to, I guess, the residential spaces, the residential properties behind it, and it's also because it's in the rear of the building, away from the 30 Knightsbridge right of way.
Well, you're certainly not going to see it from the road, and there are a few houses in the behind the property there to the south that potentially would have a view of it, especially in the wintertime, because most of the trees that separate the properties are deciduous. So there'll be a few houses, a handful of houses that'll have a
Okay.
view.
But that view will be of the side of the building, that the height of this tank is not above the height of the building.
Correct.
Okay. Does the tank is not located in a parking lot, it's located on grass?
Correct.
Okay, it's up against the side of the building, correct?
Well, it's in a little niche but yes, it's adjacent to the side of the building. It's not right up against it.
So the location and installation of the tank will not have any effect on traffic circulation or parking for the property?
No, it's not going to affect it at all.
Okay. Is there any impact on stormwater management for the property because of the tank's location?
No.
Okay. How about landscape?
Well, there are a couple of big evergreen trees in this corner that will need to be removed. But other than that, no.
Okay. And will there be any impact to the lighting on the property in general?
No.
Okay. And you identified it before, but just for clarity, because of the height of the structure being 34 feet, that's what triggers the variance request, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We did receive a few memos, and I just kind of want to run through the memo from internal memo from Mr. Hinterstein. It's dated November 23rd.
Mr. Butler? Mr.
Oh,
Butler,
sure.
If you want to just perhaps have Mr. Dorn just address whatever Mr. Reverend Kenny's question was before you come to the staff report.
Sure. Mr. Dorn, Reverend Kenny had asked about the mounting of the tank and how it's going to be placed out there on the property.
You answered, excuse me, Reverend Kenny speaking. You answered
sorry.
my question thoroughly, because I was waiting to hear how it was going to be mounted on a pad back of the building, the safety factor, and the fenced-in, gated with a lock and key. When the driver comes to fill this, that he'll be able to see the pressure that he's putting into this tank. That's a safety feature that comes from Air Products. Because I worked for Air Products prior to this, so I know how they mount the tank. So first of all, the young lady said inside, but you have the smaller tanks inside, feeds off of this 34-foot tank. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
That answers the question. Thank you very much, sir.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you. And just for clarification, this tank, the 34-foot tank is outside and it would be feeding the nitrogen into the interior of the building for use in the freezers to keep the freezers at the correct temperature. That is correct, Mr. Doran?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. If there weren't any other questions, I was just going to try to go through Mr. Hinterstein's review memo.
Mr. Butler, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Mr. Butler,
sorry.
this is Dawn Corcoran. I just had one quick question. So the only connection to the new tank is going basically from internally to the external. Like there's no new utilities that need to be run to this tank from the street or anything like that. It's just going to be from this new tank and then directly connecting into the belt, like the tank.
That's correct. And that was another reason we wanted to put the tank where we did, because the tanks inside are going to be stored right in that building on 2 floors. So the only piping will be from the tank into the building.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. All right, if we can maybe just run through Mr. Hinterstein's review comments. I don't know if there were any other questions from the board.
Just
once again,
share your screen.
I'm sorry, unshare. Hold on.
Thank you.
Got it. Sorry about that. All right, so once again, this is Mr. Hinterstein's review dated November 23rd, 2021. in his site impact section number 1, Mr. Doran, the fencing surrounding the tank will be black, correct?
Yes,
And there will be black PVC screen slats placed within the fence posts.
correct.
Okay. Number 2, there is no barbed wire on the fence, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I think that also addresses number 3, because the height of the fence, I think, is 6 feet, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then number.
I'm sorry, Mr. Butler, this is Dawn Corcoran again. I'm so sorry to interrupt
That's
you,
okay.
but
No problem.
can you just confirm then the total height of the fence and the wall? It will not exceed 8 feet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Number 4, the nitrogen tank, it will be white, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just running down the rest of those items. So items 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those are really kind of items that Mr. Hinterstein wanted addressed, and the applicant, with the assistance of the property owner, is willing to address those items.
And would you be willing, your client be willing to enter into developers agreement to memorialize and set forth the timeframes when those would be done, Mr. Butler?
Yes, we would be willing to address those, working with Mr. Hinterstein to come up with a plan that makes sense for the board and the township and my client.
Okay, so a condition of approval would be a developers agreement. You're amenable to that?
Correct.
Okay.
Regarding we also received a review memorandum from CME dated December 6, 2021. Those are the comments within that memorandum are more of a planning concern, and I will address those when I sum up and make a proffer on the variance request. Outside of that, I don't have any further questions for Mr. Doran. I don't know if any other members of the board or members of the public have any questions.
Members of the board, do you have any questions for Mr. Doran?
Well, this is Ron Reinertson. Just to amplify that this tank is kind of in a catty corner between these two buildings, correct?
Mr. Doran?
Yes.
Yeah, because I visited the site yesterday, and it's like almost like an L shape, and with the two buildings, but it's on the wall of the one.
That's correct. There's a entrance into what you wouldn't know when you're there, but that's building number 4 that you would be entering in, and the tank would be just to the left. So yes, building number 4 actually projects out and creates a little alcove there, and that's where this tank is going to sit.
And it's a fair distance from the residential area.
It's about 400, at least 400 feet.
Okay, and that's what I observed also. And also this tank, it's lower than the building, and it won't be visible from the right of way from the street, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and just one other item. How these parking areas are set up, it's almost like they almost have parking pods. There's just one parking area that's kind of dedicated to these two buildings, correct, in the back of the building?
That is, yes, because there's a huge parking lot on the other side of the building. So
yeah, that's where I went originally, and I was lost. So once I finally found the way, I went to the back. So
yeah,
because it said truck entrance only, and I was trying to obey the law, but I was wrong. Thank you.
No, this parking lot will be utilized by the employees going into building 4.
Okay, I thank you, and I forgot to unmute my camera while I was asking questions. Thank you.
Sure.
And Mr. Butler, the applicant would comply with any of the CME, other than the planning comments dealing with testimony. any of the other items they would comply with, correct?
Correct, Mr. Barlow.
Thank you. And just so the board's aware that the fire marshal had approved the plans on November 17th, 2021, and the director of public works had no comments, Madam Chair.
So have the board finished asking questions of Mr. Doran? If not, we need to open it to the public.
No one, Madam Chair.
All right, seeing no hands, closed to the public. Mr. Butler, do you have any other witnesses for tonight?
I do not, Madam Chairwoman, sorry. What I would like to do is sum up and provide a proffer on the variance request. So as you heard from Mr. Doran and Ms. Storella, what's being requested tonight is a preliminary and final site plan to install a liquid nitrogen tank in the rear of the property at 30 Knightsbridge, below the property line. And as Mr. Ron the planner, I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your last name. As he said,
it's Reinertson, but I appreciate it.
Okay, where the tank is going to be is catty corner. It's stuck up against the building wall. The back rear building wall is not it's not a flat wall. There's an outcropping, and it's stuck in. It's going to be installed in this kind of outcropping area. And as you heard Ms. Storella say, really the only people who are going to see this or even know that this tank is there are going to be the employees who are walking into that building back building for entrance, which actually is going to be going right into the area where these freezers are going to be located. And what IBX is asking for is a flexible C2 variance. And in order for a flexible C2 variance to be granted, both the positive and the negative criteria have to be met. And as for the positive criteria, there's without a doubt that they are met in this application. The purposes of some purposes of the MLUL have to be forwarded by the granting of the variance. In this case, there are quite a few in my mind, especially purpose A and E, which concern the appropriate development and densities, because the allowance of this variance will allow IBX to rehab and rehabilitate an existing structure in an existing zone that allows for the use. And actually, as a bonus, changing space from office space to a lab space reduces the amount of employees and therefore reduces the amount of traffic and reduces the amount of parking that's required. Also, in my mind, purpose I of the MLUL is also forwarded here by creating a desirable visual impact. It's actually in the negative here because there's not going to be any visual impact. It's going to be the continuation of what's out there on the property now, but for the employees who are walking in and will see the tank. So the benefits of allowing this rehab, reuse of facility and to allow IBX to continue with its goal and purpose for combating COVID substantially outweigh any detriment from this granting of the variance. Also, the granting of the variance is not going to substantially impact or detriment the public good. As you heard Mr. Doran say, the nearest residential property is about 400 feet away. And this tank is tucked up against the building and will be lower than the building height. The tank's not going to be able to be seen from 30 Knightsbridge because it's in the rear of the property. Also, the granting of the variance is not going to substantially detriment the intent of the zoning plan. Height variances or height restrictions are normally put in place to limit or curb visual impact. Here, there's really not going to be any visual impact because the height of the tank is below. Once again, it's going to be below that height of the building, and it's tucked away in the corner. For those reasons, I really truly believe that this application meets the standards for granting the C2 variance. I welcome any questions from the board or from the public for this application, and thank you for your time.
Excuse
Thank you.
me, Madam Chair, there's somebody who's chatting. Susan Reese would like to ask a question from the public.
Okay, I guess we should reopen it to the public and hear the question.
Ms. Reese?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm a resident. I
Would
have-
you give us, ma'am, would you give us your name and your address, please?
Sure, my name is Susan Reese, R-E-I-S, and my address is 825 Shirley Parkway.
And we just, Ms. Saunders, can we swear Ms. Reese in if she's gonna? comment?
Sure. Ms. Reese, can you please raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear that the testimony will give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
The first question I have is, well, between my parents and I, we've owned the home for 50 plus years. And the berm that's been put up has been here since the 70s. My concern is, I know that evergreens are going to be cut down. These evergreens are very large and overgrown. They've been here from 74. I have a 70 plus year oak tree that fell over towards me, but it's on the berm. And I have been told, when I have found out, that the companies are responsible for the maintenance of the berm. And we've had numerous storms that, you know, of course, have done more than the normal storms, but I'm concerned because if you take the evergreens down, that's fine, but there's quite a few trees and it really is not properly maintained.
Okay.
Well, just so we're clear, that the two trees that we're taking down are adjacent to the building and not along the berm, that it's along the property line. So again, the tank location is tucked into the side of the building, and the two trees that are coming down are in that same spot. And then, yeah, you actually, from your property, you can't see where the tank is going.
As long as the trees can't reach the tanks. That's all I want to hear.
No, there won't be any big tanks by the tree.
Okay, and I had one question, I guess
I'm
probably.
sorry, big trees by.
Right. And my other question is on the tank that is outside, does that get flushed out occasionally? And when I mean flushed out, like aerated, is there any type of a way that it gets cleansed at all, or does it just keep getting refilled?
I don't know specifically, but what I would say is that the company that supplies the liquid nitrogen air gas, they will maintain the tank. So if it needs to be cleaned, they'll clean it.
That's something I think I would want to know now, because if you're sitting out there in the summertime and it gets cleaned, does it get cleaned on a weekday, a weekend? There's residents that are sitting here and, you know, we're going to hear that loud noise when they flush it out.
I don't think there'll be any noise involved.
You don't think?
Well, we don't.
No.
No, wait, right. Well,
Reverend Kenny would like to interject and answer our question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you said you don't think, but you don't know. Is that what did I hear you correct?
No, I'm trying to tell you to make a statement towards you. The liquid nitrogen tank, it's only liquid gas. It's not
Right.
gasoline. It's liquid nitrogen. They
Right.
don't cleanse those tanks. They
Okay.
only paint the outside, the white, not on the interior of the tank.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay.
I'm happy. Thank you very much. Those are my two questions.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, this is Councilwoman Cahill, and just to, I know that our time to comment was gone, but this resident brought up a good point that I actually meant to ask was, is the applicant required to replace those two trees that are coming down? And I know not necessarily in the same area, but isn't that part of our when applicants work with our landscape engineers, that they are replacing any plantings that they take down. I'm fairly sure that's one of our requirements.
We went through that with Mr. Hinterstein, and yes, we will be doing that.
And that would be a condition of any approval. Council
Right.
Cahill.
Okay.
Yes.
Missing trees, anything of that nature need to be replaced to the satisfaction of Mr. Hinterstein.
Correct. If the removal, I don't know the diameter of the trees, but if they did trigger some sort of replacement, that would be done.
And Madam Chair, there's a question in the chat room from a Tony D. Asking about how much noise will be generated ongoing and during tank refilling. I think Mr. Tony D is on site. I mean, is on the Zoom call.
Is that Mr. Doran?
Oh, Tony?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you state your full name and your address?
Sure, it's Tony DiVincenzo, and I'm speaking on behalf of my mother who lives at 19 Blueberry Court.
Okay.
Could you spell your last name for Ms. Saunders?
Yes.
V-I, capital V-I-N-C-E-N-Z-O.
Okay. Mr. Diacenzo, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
And that was your question, sir? How much noise will be generated ongoing and during tank refilling?
Yes, and also, can you once again show the exact location of the tank, because it wasn't clear to me during the demonstration there.
Sure, and I will pull it up. I got to share my screen. Just give me a moment. And I apologize. My computer, I'm having an issue with my computer, so I may actually be bumped off and have to call back in.
Well, if I could share my screen, I have Google Maps.
Well, here you go. So this is if you can see this.
Where is that in relation to the parking lot?
So this is the rear parking lot.
Yes.
The main parking lot would be on this side, and the tank is being placed right here in this outcropped corner.
Mr. DiVincenzo, that your property is right where Michael, where I say proposed air gas tank location in the right there, it's directly where I say tank in that.
Yep, understood. Okay. Thank you. And can you comment on the noise that's generated by the tank itself and by the filling of the tank?
There is no noise. There's no noise.
Other than the dog barking.
Understood. Understood.
Any other questions, sir?
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we remove that from the screen, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Buckley, if there's no indication from someone in the public, I'm going to close it to the public now.
And no one has their hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further discussions from the board, or are you prepared to entertain a motion?
If I may, Madam Chair, this is Mayor Waller. I think I know that Mr. Hinterstein is going to be working with the applicant, but Mr. Barlow, I would strongly suggest that we also sit down with the owner of the property, the company that owns the property, and deal with the berm in the back. The lady on Shirley Parkway was absolutely correct. That is a very mature berm that needs to be spruced up. I remember when that was built when I was a young kid. So it's been a while. And so work between the applicant and the property owner, I think we can come to a favorable conclusion for the folks that back up. And I do know one of the other residents did contact me about, I guess there's still one of the parking lot lights is still shining spillage over into the property, and I think we can remedy that too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So do we have a motion, or is there further discussion?
Councilwoman Cahill, I'll make a motion to approve this application, provided that the applicant does abide by all of the variant suggestions that are on the report and the landscape engineer, with Henry, has agreed to all those, which I believe we've heard here on testimony. I don't know, Mr. Barlow, was there anything else specifically that we needed to note in the offer?
Just that some of the initial paperwork indicated that they weren't going to put in any EV stations, but they have agreed to comply with the recommendations for the EV and also to enter into a developer's agreement, and all of the items can be addressed further, and the municipality will have greater control of what's going out there as a result of the developer's agreement.
That's great. So that in the future, if the applicant comes before, they would have to comply with those. So I will put that offer then forward.
Madam Chair, Dawn Corcoran, I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam
Thank you
Chair,
so much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just, because of the time, the delicate and time-sensitive nature of the application and they're being involved in the ongoing COVID pandemic and the testing, a draft resolution was prepared if the board acted favorably on the matter. I believe it's been disseminated to the board based on the favorable application, and much of the items that were raised during the meeting are encompassed within the proposed resolution, including the developer's agreement and full cooperation with Mr. Hinterstein. It would be appropriate at this time, unless Mr. Butler has any objection, the board could memorialize the resolution at this time so that Biologics can get going with further COVID testing on behalf of the state of New Jersey.
No, I have no objections. I think the board, if they were to consider this.
Ms. Saunders, are you prepared to memorialize that proposed resolution?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
No.
Oh, you can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know whether you said anything yet.
Okay, no, I was, okay, I'm stuck trying to bring up the document.
Okay.
Now I'm having I was like, I was doing good here. Okay, give me 1 second, I'm sorry. Okay, Madam Chairman, I'd like to memorialize application 21 PB 38/39V for Infinity Biologics for preliminary and final site plan with bulk variants.
Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Roll call.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, you too.
You too.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you. Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Madam Chair, this is Councilwoman Cahill. I am going to need to recuse myself from this last application. But I do want to say Happy New Year to Mr. Nate Yates, and it's good to see him on screen. He is a neighbor, so I will have to recuse myself. So I'll wish everyone a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Gabby.
Good night.
Good night.
Item number 12, minor subdivision 20 PB6, Nathan A. Yates. minor subdivision. Mr., are you, is Mr.
Yes,
Zullo
good
appearing?
evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the
Okay,
board,
Mhm. Go ahead.
Attorney Barlow,
Mhm.
and Mr., is he still here? Mr. Renenken? Renenson,
Mhm.
yes. My name is Robert Zullo. As I said, I'm a licensed attorney in the state of New Jersey, and I represent the applicant, Nathan Yates, who is in the meeting. And I would like to take some testimony from him briefly regarding the application.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Yates, can you please raise your right hand?
Yes, hello, everyone.
Okay, hello. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Nathan Yates, Nathanyates. I live at 1023 River Road, Piscataway.
Thank you.
Mr. Yates, how long have you owned the property?
27 years.
And are you prepared to share the minor subdivision sketch plat, which was created by Brunswick Surveying, initially dated January 26, 2021, and revised 10/28/21?
Yes.
Just reference that as A1, Mr. Zullo, okay?
Yes, Mr. Barlow. Thank you. Mr. Yates, can you briefly describe what's proposed by this application?
Yes, I'm proposing to turn my property, which is currently approximately 1.5 acres, into 2 separate lots with a minor subdivision. It's a single family home with a detached garage, which would be encompassed in the first portion of the subdivision, and largely an open grass field, which would be the second lot being proposed.
And your property is in the R15 zone, correct?
Correct.
And do both lots, as proposed, substantially exceed the lot area requirement in the R15 zone?
They do.
Are you seeking any variances?
No.
I'd like the applicant to address the CME review letter to the Piscataway Township Zoning Planning Board, which I'd like marked as applicant's Exhibit 2.
Is that the report of May 19th, 2021 you're referencing, Mr.?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, we don't need to mark that. It's part of the record, but certainly I just wanted to make sure we had the same document, so.
Yeah, that's it. And to accelerate the process, I believe that the board's planner can confirm that all of the bulk standards have been complied with for the proposed subdivision sketch plat does comply with the bulk standards.
Yeah, it's been represented that all the pre-existing nonconformities are going to be removed, and that the subdivision into 2 lots are going to be 2 conforming lots.
I do need to, there was some confusion as to whether things are going to be removed or relocated. So to the extent necessary, I'd like to address or have Mr. Yates address those, which
Agreed.
begin on page 4, namely the frame garage is 1.44 square feet oversized according to the ordinance. And Mr. Yates has agreed to reconstruct it to comply. Is that correct, Mr. Yates?
Yes.
The other 2 are associated with a side setback and a rear setback for a small shed at the rear of the property, and you intend to relocate that structure. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's shown here. It's a garden shed, and I'll move it the proper distance away from both property lines.
And in your front yard, actually in the county right of way, there is a split rail fence. And what have you agreed to do with that?
There's a post and rail split rail fence that runs along River Road inside the county right of way, and I'll remove that.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said there's split rail fence that runs along River Road inside the county right of way, and I'm going to remove that.
Also as a condition of approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there will no, we are not requesting any variance relief, correct?
Correct.
Now, the memo at 7E raises the issue of reconfiguration of the existing driveway. Do you have any plan to develop the lot to be created by this subdivision in the immediate future?
No, I have no plans to develop this proposed lot in the immediate future.
Would you be willing to reconfigure the driveway in accordance with whatever standards the building department of the Township of Piscataway may propose in the event there was to be a severance of ownership or a proposed development of the lot?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow, the other points to be addressed in the planning memo are really post-approval issues such as assignment of lot numbers and the applicant
They would all be conditions,
would be complied with.
they would all potentially be conditions of approval that would be complied with.
Correct.
Okay. The applicant will agree to them, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I think the last and final issue for this application really is the planning memo.
That's the May 24th, 2021 memorandum of Mr. Hinterstein you're referring to, sir?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I would also like to, I think it's part of the record, as you suggested, with the CMA report, the December 8th letter to Ms. Saunders regarding the county approval of the revised site plan, sketch plat.
I don't think I'm in possession of that letter. Miss Buckley, do you have it?
It was sent by Patrick Gorman on December 8th, 2021.
I don't know what letter he's referring to.
Yeah, I don't either.
Is that from the county?
That is from the county.
Oh. I wonder.
Yeah, I've never seen it, Mr. Zullo.
Well, I don't have, let me see if I have the ability to.
I can share the letter if that helps.
Oh, you can. Yes, that will certainly help.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Dawn, have you seen the letter?
I have not seen the letter.
Okay.
Just take me 1 moment to get to that letter. Okay, and there I'm presenting the letter from December 8th from Patrick Gorman. Would you like me to make it a little smaller? Can you see it?
Or just scroll down so we could maybe read it real quick.
Sure.
I apologize for not getting this, but since it was addressed to Ms. Saunders, I assumed that it was in the file.
Outlined. It makes reference because it says have been waived after compliance by the applicant with the conditions outlined to you dated 8/12/21. I don't know what letter that's referencing either.
Nor do I, Mr. Barlow.
So I don't know. I guess I don't know what was, it's saying you complied. I don't know what they asked you to do, I guess.
Tell you what they asked us to do is what was done on Exhibit 1, which was the revisions of 10/28/21 in response to the county's letter, which added the right-of-way and center line of River Road per county comments and additional survey work.
Okay. Well, I mean, normally, one of the conditions would be, compliance with any requirements of the Middlesex County Planning Board. So if you've complied with them, then that'll be an easy condition to meet.
And Mr. Zullo, if I may, this is Dawn Corcoran. Did the county have sufficient right of way? Is that what you're telling us? Or did your client need to dedicate additional right of way?
No, there's no requirement to dedicate additional right-of-way.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I just want to get this correct. So the applicant, there's already the 55-foot half width out there?
Width per the survey, or the entire width of the River Road right-of-way per this sketch plat, which is what the county asked the applicant to reflect on the revised plan, is 66 feet.
The revised.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dawn, it's the 110-foot right-of-way out there, correct?
That is correct.
Well, I got to tell you, Bob, we always ask for whatever the right-of-way is out there. And as you know, the county's under engineering design out there to reconstruct that section of the roadway. And normally it's the town's job to get the right-of-way out there, and we're going to have the 55-foot half width.
And the applicant's not willing to provide it.
Well, then I'm voting no. I'm just letting you know right now.
And if
This
we
has been
may,
the policy of the board with every application that's ever come before this board when it comes to the county right of way. You will not have my vote on that.
There is no
Bob, you're pushing water up a hill. This has been the policy of this board for 20+ years or longer with every application.
and Mayor, if I may.
If the applicant wants to hold back and rethink this, but I have to stand firm on this one. I've been very consistent, and this whole board has been very consistent for 20 to 25 years on this.
And Mayor, if I may, the subdivision ordinance is very clear with regards to sidewalks and with regards to widening of existing streets. It is a requirement, and as you said, not only are we looking for the easement, we are also looking for the installation of those sidewalks.
And I really don't understand. I'm not trying to be difficult. I don't understand by what authority the Township of Piscataway gets to require installation of sidewalk within a county right-of-way when the county is not requiring it.
Well, I respectfully disagree, Bob. The county is under engineering design right now. They're midway through the design. There will be a sidewalk out there, and just like we required two prior applicants before that you heard, they're putting sidewalks in per the right of way. I mean, I don't want to make this difficult. I mean, if you want to enter a developer's agreement that you do it over a year's period or put a bond up or whatever, but the right of way and the sidewalk has got to happen. Almost every house, if you go by every application that's been through this board and the zoning board over the last 15 to 20 years or longer has been the same thing. And I'm pretty sure Ms. Corcoran can verify that.
And Mayor, with regard to the developers agreement, we would request the easement for the dedication of the right of way, the sidewalk, and we will also need a temporary construction easement.
Oh, here we are. All I can say is that the letter of December 8th requires no such thing.
Well, I respectfully disagree, Bob, and I'm not going to go back and forth. The job, we have an interlocal agreement with the county. We have to acquire all rights of way and pay for all improvements out there with the county. That's a standard county agreement. And I'll be honest with you, you don't have my vote on this one unless we get the right of way and the sidewalks. I mean, because it wouldn't be fair to all the other applications for the last 2 decades that you get a pass on this one, and everybody else has to do it.
And Mr. Zullo, since we don't have any of the letters from the county, I feel like I'm flying a little blind in terms of what the county even did beyond what the mayor's already indicated in terms of, the half width on River Road. Because the county's going to make Piscataway pay for the sidewalk or the obtaining the land, the easements are saying. Correct, Dawn?
I understand this is where we were last time. And I'm just not aware of any provision which would permit Piscataway to take 15 feet you're looking for of Mr. Yates's property in consideration of a totally conforming subdivision or approval of a totally conforming subdivision.
This, if I may, Mr. Zullo, the subdivision ordinance makes it very clear, and I'll give you the section number 20-511.2-5, widening of existing streets. And it specifically says that subdivisions that do not conform to widths as shown on the master plan or official map or the street width requirements of this section shall dedicate additional width along either one or both sides of the road.
I'm sorry, what number was that?
It's 20-511.2-5. I can send you the section tomorrow if you like.
Oh, that's okay. That's the Piscataway ordinance.
Correct. But again, this
doesn't own the right of
conform.
way and it doesn't own the street. The town does. I'm sorry, the county does.
The county does, but it says that if it does not conform to the width as shown on the master plan or the official map of the township, our master plan calls for a 55-foot half width.
That's in our new
That-
master plan too.
That I
is our
haven't seen.
Subdivision ordinance.
Yeah.
You still don't have jurisdiction over this road.
We have jurisdiction over the subdivision application and the ordinance applies to it.
No question you have jurisdiction over the subdivision application, but not this road and not the right of way. It's a legal issue.
I guess Judge McCluskey will ultimately decide that. I mean, Mr. Zullo, either the application is going to be denied because the applicant doesn't want, potentially because the applicant doesn't want to comply with the conditions as set forth by the municipal professionals, or they could grant the application with all those conditions or grant them without the conditions. So the board always looks to work with the applicants to seek their agreement to comply, as did, the last 2 applicants and every applicant. We're always looking to work with an applicant, but those are the conditions and that's the ordinance as to the subdivision. So,
Mr. Barlow, if I may, Mr. Zullo, just down the road when Colgate had their addition down there, they had to give the 55-foot half width down there. on Colgate, County Road, right
No
down the road.
No sidewalks at Colgate.
They put escrowed money aside for the counties to do the sidewalks because the county is what's part of the reconstruction of River Road from Overbrook to Hose Lane West.
I think that the applicant should be given a period of time to consider the options here.
And Mr. Barlow, the other application down there in Garrison Lane, where it was a 3-lot subdivision fronting River Road, same thing, 55-foot half-width sidewalks. They just started to construct it now.
Yeah, I mean, this is my 3rd year as the board attorney, and every single application has curbs, sidewalks, and the dedication of the half width.
Mr. Barlow, I understand. I was on the zoning board for 9 or 10 years, and every application where they could get it, the township requested it.
Well, you indicate, look, you didn't notice for the meeting, so there's not a notice issue. If you want to ask for an adjournment to consider it and come back after you consider it at the next meeting, that's certainly your prerogative if the board wants to consider that, if you'd like time to discuss it with your client.
I think it's necessary to do that. We can't conduct our, discussions.
Well, understood. We don't have the benefit of going in the hallway or something.
Right.
And the developer's agreement might afford the applicant, additional time if that's the concern. And the board's not adverse to working with the property owner through a developer's agreement if more time is needed or, other options as we've already discussed.
And Mr. Zullo, if you could please, if you decide to, ask for additional time for you to discuss this with your client, if you could please get us the information from the county, any of the plans, just so we have the opportunity.
To all the
as the board.
communications, I can't believe that I realize what's happening with COVID and whatnot, but I can't believe that a letter sent by Patrick Gorman, senior planner, a month ago, never reached you.
Well, Mr. Yates, can I just ask you a quick question? Is the planning board attorney copied on the bottom of that letter?
Everybody's copied. Douglas Greenfield.
He's with the county.
I will say this.
There's the CC list showing on the screen. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Mrs. Buckley and Don Corcoran, who was on the call, are all CC'd.
Am I CC'd though?
Tom Barlow.
I have to say,
none of us are received.
I'm pretty sure I didn't get it because I would have billed you for it. So I can only say that I haven't seen any correspondence. I just went through my file again. I have nothing from the county,
There are 2 letters from the county, and I'll be happy to email them immediately after this meeting.
Yeah, and as Dawn indicated, if there were revised plans in response to that, that would be great too. So it sounds like
what you're looking at on the screen is the one that was produced in response to their requirements.
Okay, but
this says variable right away.
I'm looking at the CME report, Mr. Zulu, and as on the first page, they always outline what they reviewed, and it says they reviewed the January 26, 2021, and that's why when you indicated it had been revised October 28, 21, I was a little surprised because obviously that was not submitted. Because usually any revisions would get submitted also, so we could just see what had happened.
It was submitted, but the only thing that was revised, as far as I know, is added right-of-way and center line of River Road per county comment.
No, I'm sure you submitted it to the county because you got a letter in response. What I meant was, it doesn't appear the plan was submitted to Piscataway. because all the reports predate the last revision, correct? All the reports are May of 2021 and the revision's October of 2021. So besides the county letters, I'm just saying, we haven't seen the revised plan, which had this center line information, which I guess they were responding to. You know, it doesn't necessarily change what we've talked about earlier, but I'm sure everybody just wants to have all the same information.
Yeah, I apologize, but I guess I assumed that the county's letter of December 8th and their letter of August 12th addressed to Miss Saunders was delivered.
No, and it's certainly reasonable. I go back to the old, I'm blanking on the TV show. You know what happens when you assume, and
Yes.
Felix would draw on the board. So
The Odd Couple.
Odd, thank you.
It just, thankfully, it wasn't an assumption related to something that I generated.
No, again, and it happens. So do you want to carry it and we can all get the same information? You can talk to Mr. Yates and we'll put you on February's agenda.
Mr. Yates, what do you feel about that?
That's fine. I think the main issue is not changed. I mean, it's the same things. This is the second time. So we've been doing this for a while.
Okay. Let's do that.
Ms. Smith, if the board's amenable, then I think it would be appropriate to make a motion to carry and continue the Yates application 20 PB06
Can we remove the, this from the screen, please?
to the February meeting.
Thank you. Okay, this matter is adjourned until our February the 9th meeting. Do we need a motion?
I think that would be appropriate.
Would someone make a motion to have this matter adjourned until February 9th meeting?
No, we don't have to do that, Madam Chair.
Okay, I go by what Laura says.
Yeah, we don't need a motion for that.
Okay, sir.
Just put on the record.
Laura has adjourned it 100
Yes, that's
times.
right.
We're good.
Our final word. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Then you'll be listed for the February 9th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A few items left. Board members, please, can I get a motion to pay the bills?
Madam Chairman, this is Carol Saunders. I make a motion that we pay the bills.
Do I have a second?
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, sir. Second, did I hear a second?
Dawn Corcoran, yes.
Yes, roll call, please.
Mayor Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cahill. Oh, she left, sorry. Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders,
Yes.
Reverend Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Mr. Foster. Did we lose him? Madam Chair.
Yes. Motion for an adjournment.
Second, Carol Saunders.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hearing opposers? Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
good night, everyone.
Stay safe.
Have
Aye,
a
thank
wonderful
you.
evening.